Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome. TGIF Friday, August the 4th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show as always. And I do apologize for those who were maybe tuned in to the previous YouTube link. I got into our streaming platform, and for some reason, the YouTube video had been scheduled, but it was not in the back end for us, and it forced me to create a new YouTube live stream, what have you, if you will. So again, apologies for the confusion, guys. Either way, we're live, we're rocking, we're rolling. I see Travi, I see Austin Lewis, Arthur Bear, Breaking, GA, John Edward, Rebecca, Chase. What's going on? Appreciate you all tuning in. Also, those in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel, the TDC Questions channel, to be sure your questions are answered there. Brendan M says, have a good show. Thank you, Brendan, for the well wishes. He says, hanging out with the fam, so probably won't be around today. I hear you. Either way, guys, big time show, big time excitement here on this Friday. South Carolina has officially hit the practice field to begin preparations for the 2023 football season. Fall camp getting underway this morning. 9:20 a.m. practice begun. We've seen some of the pictures, some of the video, what have you. Really, really excited to hear from Shane Beamer and company as fall camp gets underway and the countdown continues here on this Friday. Just 29 days away until toe meets leather in Charlotte, North Carolina. Guys, got a packed show today. A lot to get into. Q&A Power Hour in hour number 3. We'll take all of your questions, your comments, your calls, and more. In our second hour, we have my good friend Jake Crane jumping on the show. We'll talk all things Gamecocks, SEC, and college football. A lot going on in regards to realignment and the ever-changing landscape of college football as we know it. Of course, guys, in this first hour, we're going to wrap up our position unit preview, talking Gamecocks tight ends on the show today. A lot of fun. Also, we start the show with a great conversation. Dave Bartu, he's at College Football Matrix, at CFB Matrix on social media, and he is the co-founder of Matrix Analytical. For those of you who may not have heard of Dave Bartu, this is a guy that their analytics and their numbers and what they have to say, it goes a long way in a lot of the hirings you see across college football. So, for example, when South Carolina hired Shane Beamer, when they added Travian Robertson, we talked Marcus Satterfield, Dowell Loggins, really, really good stuff. Also, some other SEC coaching staffs as well. Dave, a really smart guy. I learned a lot from this conversation, the numbers that go into hiring a high-quality staff, etc. So we're going to get into that in just a second. Again, guys, thank y'all so much for the continued love support. Also, let me say thank y'all for the love support on the merchandise side of the business. We continue to receive the orders as we get closer to kickoff, which I expected to happen. And, of course, when we get into the season, we'll be rock and rolling. You guys know the drill. So, again, thank y'all so much. I really, truly do appreciate it. With that being said, hey, we got a lot of content to get into here on this Friday. Let's start with our conversation. Dave Bartu of Matrix Analytical.
So for everybody listening, about, I think it was 2008, I started jumping into college football data, specifically on the recruiting side, and seeing how recruiting correlated with wins and losses. And most of the discussion that you hear today in regards to winning a national title and recruiting and winning football games and recruiting, that all started in 2008 with a spreadsheet out here in Oregon. And then I started diving into, and recruiting was basically 63, 64, 65% of all wins and losses. And so the next question is, what's the other 35%? Little bit of home field, not much, a little bit of luck with turnovers, but mostly coaching. And so my data partner and myself in 2009 started keeping track of coaching, and not just head coaches, everybody that wears a headset. So for fans out there listening, there's 11 guys on every team that have a headset during the game. Those are your defensive play caller, your offensive play caller, your head coach, D-line, wide receiver. We have every single guy since 2009 in FBS and FCS graded in our database,
Mhm.
every single one. And it's all based on play-by-play data, quality of schedule versus quality of the team you have. So for example, a defensive coordinator at South Carolina that has the same number as the defensive coordinator at Alabama is going to grade out higher because he has less talent versus the schedule. Okay. We also have another big factor in it is progression and regression. Does your unit get better over time? How fast does it get good? Does it maintain? Does it have ups and downs? So we started grading out these coaches 14 years ago. We now have 15,182 different career profiles in our system. We are college football staffing analytics, period. We have no competition. There's nobody close to us. And I dare say, good luck even trying to find all the names, let alone grading them at this point. So we work with programs all over the country. We do other things. We have recruiting analytics. We have referee behavior analytics. We love to be a devil's advocate for on-field analytics, like going for 2 points. If you see a head coach going for 2 when there is no score and time pressure, they are doing the wrong thing. Ask Nick Saban losing an SEC title game by going for 2 twice against LSU. Coaches last year were 1 and 3 in 2-point conversion outcomes that affected the game. So those are the basic things that we do, but our forte is coach grading and building staffs. The first 2 programs that actually signed up with us a few years ago were Tulane and Oregon State. That was 3 years ago. Both were top 25 last year. Both have incredibly strong staffs now. And a lot of it is built on the foundation of analytical behavior in coaching outcomes. So we see our strength going forward for college football is we're making coaching better across the board, which is going to make for better college football across the board.
And again, of course, we're talking with Dave Bartoo at CFB Matrix on Twitter. Of course, he's the co-founder of Matrix Analytical, which, as he just mentioned, college football's #1 talent search and analytics consultant to all football coaches, ADs, football operations, and agents as well. I like this line too, Dave, on your Twitter. The first ever Moneyball, a college football staff, because of the numbers, right? I do get that. It's kind of that Moneyball model, if you will, which great movie also.
You want me to tell that story? Dude,
Yeah,
you're not going to.
Please
you're
do.
Not gonna
Yeah, please do.
So a few years ago, a former head coach came to us and said, "Hey, I've been following you guys and your data, and can you help me get a job?" Because everybody was looking at his 500 record, but he was at really crappy programs. It was like being 500 at Vanderbilt, right? It's like, holy crap, who does that? And so we helped him improve his interviews by walking into the interviews with stacks of staffing options. So he got a job one day. He called me up a couple of years ago, and he said, "Dave, you helped me land a job." He goes, "First week of December," he goes, "I got to recruit. So what I need you to do," he goes, "I picked out 4 other guys. I need you to go find the other 6 in your numbers." I was like, "What?" That's never been done before, right? And he's like, "No, I got to recruit." He goes, "We've been together long enough. I believe in it. You go find the guys. You set up the interviews. I'll knock them down." And that's what we did. I literally, the first guy I got a hold of, our #1 offensive coordinator, 4-star offensive coordinator, and he was sitting at home. And I tracked him down through Twitter. I called one of my followers on Twitter. I DM'd him. I'm like, "Hey, can you get a hold of this guy? Because he was part of your program that you were quarterback of." And he's like, "Give me 5 minutes." And I got his number. I'm on the phone with him. I set up an interview, and bang, it's done. And so it wasn't an entire staff, but 6 of the 11 headsets were literally Moneyball. It used analytics to track each of these guys down, and formed a staff. So, and the win-loss record of that program the very next year, they increased their win total by 4 the very next year after the guy was hired. So that was an interesting process on many levels, but I dare say there's been nobody else to ever Moneyball staff like we have.
So, Dave, what do your numbers tell you when a school hires a coach who has never been a head coach before? And I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. For example, when the Gamecocks hired Shane Beamer back in December of 2020, and there were other candidates out there, right? I mean, Billy Napier, Hugh Freeze, Joe Brady was a name kind of floating around in the Gamecocks land on Shane Beamer. What do the numbers tell you again when they go with a guy who's only been a special teams coordinator or a tight ends coach? He's never been an OC, a DC, what have you. And then, if you want to expand on what the numbers said about Shane Beamer and the way that I would have to assume he's overachieved those numbers to this point.
Right. Well, the numbers didn't say anything, right? Because there were no numbers. See, that's one of the things in football that drives me crazy is like, remember the Shane's rookie year, right? And you saw the rankings of SEC head coaches. How do you even rank a guy that's never been a head coach, right? It's the same thing as how can you get high or low about your new offensive play caller? You can't get high or low about Dowell. You got no information, zero. So with Shane, one of the things in the data is we've learned is pump your brakes. Don't get too far ahead. Don't get too far behind. Don't say this is a bad hire or this is a great hire. But what we will look at is what does the staff look like? Because if the staff is weak to begin with, we're going to have some problems right away. Most rookie head coaches, they are fired because in our numbers, the staffs are weak to begin with. They are bad at hiring. And with Shane, the two things that stood out for us, number one, getting Pete Lembo. Okay, top 10 special teams coordinator. We've loved this guy for a long time. Couldn't believe Ball State had the nerve to get rid of the guy. And really, Ball State, who the hell do you think you are? You're not that guy. Okay. And so we were really happy with Lembo, and we were really happy with Clayton White. I love Clayton White. Totally off the radar. I think he's top 30 defensive coordinator in the country right now. He's done a wonderful job. I love that hire. So right off the bat, two of the three coordinators we were absolutely happy with. Okay. Marcus Satterfield, nope, below average. So our guesstimate was South Carolina. I called him the first for 20 in Shane's first year. If whoever gets to 20 first is going to win. Because the offense is going to be crap and the defense is going to be really good. Special teams is going to be great. I haven't really changed my mind on that much to this point, other than I think Spencer Rattler is extremely underrated. Extremely underrated. So back to your question on looking at Shane, we were optimistic about the start for him because in two of the three most important areas, we thought he excelled. Okay, I don't like using the word hit a home run because, well, we need sample size. We need years and games to really evaluate somebody. But we were very happy with where he was going in that direction. Offensively, like I said, with Satterfield, I wouldn't have hired him. Wasn't good on paper. It worked last year, but I think that was more Rattler than Satterfield. We'll see what happens this year. And again, with Shane being no evaluation, the same thing is for Dowell this year, where we got no evaluation on him. He is a 0.5 in our grading system, right in the middle. And he's going to fall one way or the other over the next coming years. Now, Shane, as it relates to other head coaches in the SEC, his grade is closest to a guy that gets a ton of credit all the time, and that's Pittman at Arkansas. You hear everybody, Pittman gets a lot of love compared to Shane, but when you look at our grading system and the number of years both guys have, they're very, very similar. So right now, Shane, I think he's only got a couple of years in, so he doesn't even have a full grade. So we really, we got 2 more years before I feel comfortable evaluating what Shane has done, who he is as a coach. Recruiting has been solid. It's been maintained. Top 20 recruiter, defensive coordinator, special teams. Now if either of those guys go, now we got an interesting situation in terms of who is he going to hire next to replace those. But until then, he's doing an above average job. And from a coordinator standpoint, above average hiring as well.
Dave, how much does it surprise you when coaches go against the numbers, maybe? And like a guy like Marcus Satterfield, you mentioned, and I think everybody was ready to move on. And I agree with you with Dowell Loggins.
Mhm.
Obviously echoing what you said, the numbers, there's nothing out there. I mean, we really just have no idea. It's kind of a wait and see type of deal of what he can do with the offense over the next couple of years. But, Marcus Satterfield hired by Matt Rule at Nebraska, and college football is so funny in that sense that, and this doesn't have to do with the analytics necessarily, but you have one fan base in South Carolina that's rejoicing that he's no longer there. You have another
Right.
fan base in Nebraska that's rejoicing that they got him. So, like, but does it surprise you? And I'm sure not every head coach uses the numbers available, which I guess shame on them if that's the case. But does it surprise you when they go against all those numbers and say, you know what? I think I'm smarter than what the analytics and what your numbers might have to say, and I think he's the right guy for the job. Does that ever surprise you, or what's your
Uh,
overall take
that
on
that's really common.
it?
That's really common. Look, if you were making $100,000 a week, would you change what you've done because some dude with a laptop says, "Hey, that's a high risk," right? It's hard for a zebra to change his stripes. It's hard for. I mean, you can imagine how hard it is for us to even get a head coach to accept what we do. You know, and so that what happens more often than not is a coach will go with what the direction he wants. Usually, what we'll get is we'll get a list, for a program that we work for, and we won't work for everybody. Once we get four teams in the SEC East, we're done. Once we get four teams in the SEC West, I know the divisions are going away, but we'll be done. Um, and the um, the issue with that, with the guys going with what they want, is what we try to do is just steer them in the least risky direction. So if a head coach, if I'm working for Shane and he goes, "Hey, I need to replace my D line coach," well, the first thing we usually do is, who are your first five guys? Who are your top guys? And then we'll get back and say, in order, here's how they grade out, and here's a couple other guys that are very, very similar in terms of what you're looking for. And usually, that guy that they hire is going to come from those five that they give us, or three that they give us. They rarely go outside the box. So it's right now it's currently a staff building tool to reduce risk and create upside in the hiring process.
So, Dave, you mentioned defensive line coach Travian Robertson is a new D line coach for South Carolina. Spent time at Tulane, Georgia State. You mentioned that Tulane staff. Any
Yeah.
intel, insight on him? What he brings to South Carolina? Obviously, he's a Gamecock great, which is a great first step. But again, he's the talk in Columbia is that he was one of the rising stars in college football, anyways, as an assistant. Any insight on the Gamecocks' new D line coach?
One word: upgrade. That's what you got. You got an upgrade, in my opinion. Um, I think you traded up in that deal. I think LSU traded down massively. Actually, I think the defensive line coach at LSU just took a personal leave. So, but from a performance standpoint, I believe that was a very good hire. That was a good choice by Shane. Obviously, as an alumni, Gamecock fans are all jacked up about that. That's cool, right? That's just kind of frosting on the cake. But in our numbers, very solid hire and an upgrade to the defensive side of the football.
Dave, you look across the SEC, I'm curious, best and worst coaching staffs via the analytics. You can start with the best side. I mean, who are the top tier of the coaching
Oh
staffs,
my
top to
gosh.
bottom, that you can name?
Oh man. I hate rankings, right? I like tiering guys together. Like saying Pete Lembo's number one in the country. I'd like to say he's tier one. Well, the worst is easy. That's Vanderbilt. I mean, come on. Let's just go. We'll go where it's at. That defensive staff is I think, out of 255 staffs, FCS and FBS, they're like bottom 20 on the defensive side. So Vanderbilt's an easy one at the bottom end of it. At the top end, it's the teams that have it all, right? I mean, it's Georgia, it's Alabama, it's Tennessee. A&M has a very, very good staff. Their weak link is their head coach. Jimbo is hired extremely well, but I think the coaching weak leak there in A&M is actually the head coach. LSU, their strength is offensive side. I know a lot of people are picking LSU, but that defensive staff is, I think you're giving them too much credit. I think the LSU weakness is the defensive staff. Auburn has upgraded tremendously this year across the board. That's, I wouldn't say there's really a cut and clear number one staff out there. I think there's a lot of top tier staffs. I think there's a lot of middle tier staffs. There's some third tier staffs, and then there's Vanderbilt. So if you lose to Vanderbilt, you're just going to get a fine from Greg Sankey, in my opinion.
And it's so fascinating, though, Dave, because you look across the SEC, there's so many new offensive coordinators, and everybody thinks their OC is like the next greatest thing. And it's interesting to look at the numbers and hear what they have to say. I think first over at, Dan Enos over at Arkansas, Kevin Barbay at Mississippi State with a brand new offensive scheme. Tommy Rees, of course, is the headliner at Alabama. Dowell, Loggins at South Carolina. The list just goes on and on and on. So I know you guys stay busy in regards to, I don't know which team specifically you're working with, but I know that you guys stay busy with providing the analytics and, especially when it comes to offensive coordinator, because that's just what moves the needle, man, scoring points. And if you don't have that guy, as we've seen in Columbia, if you don't have that guy, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah, I think there's in the SEC especially, there's been an overemphasis on the offensive play caller. You have a lot of good ones, right? I mean, you got Heupel, you're about to get Sarkisian, you got Kiffin, Napier is very good, Bobo's solid, Freeze is awesome, Philip Montgomery's graded higher than Hugh Freeze. They're both at Auburn. I think Tommy Rees is probably 11th in the SEC, 12th. The SEC is loaded in offensive play callers. And I think the defense has been overlooked. This is now an offensive league. I mean, could you imagine 10 years ago having this discussion that offense is going to dominate the SEC? I think a lot of it's a narrative, because I think defense wins football games. In the NFL, defense wins championships. In college football, defense usually wins the championships. It's just the stronger of the two in terms of consistency. So I agree with you. The SEC is absolutely smoking loaded with offensive play callers. The weakness is on the defensive side of the football. But remember, the scoreboard is still 50-50. It's equal on both sides. So it's a roller coaster. Things go up and things go down. So we're going through an offensive cycle, and what's going to happen is we're going to start catching up back to the defensive cycle. And 10 years from now, we'll be talking about SEC defenses and how bloody awesome they are. And then we'll just go through that cycle all over again.
Dave Bartu, CFB Matrix Analytical, all on Twitter. Dave, let everybody know how they can check out more of your work and dive into these numbers.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter anytime. My DMs are open. If I'm a college football junkie, if you want to be civil and send me a text, 971-217-8419, that is open. I have had fans hit me on that. I have had coordinators. I have had head coaches. I have had chief of staff. I have had AD. I've had board of trustees hit me on that number. You can check out more of what we do, matrixanalytical.com. It's actually an audio website. I will personally walk you through everything that we do so you understand what we do analytically for college football programs. Those are really the best ways to get to know me and what we do a little bit better.
Dave Bartu. Dave, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Let's definitely do it again soon.
Anytime, brother. You enjoy your trip to Montana, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, that was Dave Bartu. Really great stuff. Really fun conversation, learning more about what he does. And guys, in case you missed it, I was getting questions during that conversation of who Dave Bartu is. This is a guy who's been featured on the Paul Feinbaum show. And as you just heard, man, he's helped assemble some of the best coaching staffs in college football. So a pretty influential figure joining TDC today. And again, I say thank you to Dave Bartu for taking the time. Guys, we're going to jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, we'll dive back into Gamecocks tight ends in our position unit preview series. All that and more, you're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Friday, August the 4th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Let me just say one more time, thank you to Dave Bartu of Matrix Analytical at CFB Matrix on Twitter. And again, guys, this is someone who's appeared on the Paul Feinbaum Show, has had a first-hand dealing in some of the top staffs in college football, certainly in the SEC. Some really great insights on the pieces that South Carolina added and lost in this 2023 offseason, if you will. Again, guys, appreciate you all. We continue along with our position unit preview series as we wrap up our conversation about the Gamecocks tight ends. And I see my guy, Jeff Gullidge, in the comments. Jeff is very excited to hear my explanations on the grade for the tight end group. I promise you, Jeff, we will get there in just a little bit. But first, let's start. Who is the leader of the tight end group, the best overall, entering the 2023 season? And there is a clear-cut leader in this group, no doubt. In South Carolina, they had to do that. They had to make some sort of a splash after the departure of Jaheim Bell to the transfer portal, landing at Florida State. You also lose Nate Adkins to graduation, Trey Kenyon to medical retirement, Austin Stogner to the portal, back to Oklahoma as well. Do you realize, guys, that there are 8 players in this tight ends room? All 8 are brand new. So when you talk about roster overhaul and changing up a position, flipping the room, they like to call it, South Carolina did just that with their tight ends. You know, I thought one of the low-key splashes of the transfer portal cycle, you know, we've all given our opinions, how South Carolina fared in the portal. Did it help them? Did it hurt them? Were they winners? Were they losers? What have you? A huge win over the offseason via the portal was picking up Arkansas tight end Trey Knox. Knox, a 6'5", 237-pound tight end out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. You look at, he's actually a nomination. This came this morning, by the way. He's on the watch list for the John Mackey Award, which is presented to the nation's top tight end. And guys, you look at Trey Knox's career, 81 total catches, 892 yards, and 9 touchdowns. That comes in 4 seasons of college football at Arkansas. You look at last season, 26 catches, 296 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Now, what's sort of fascinating about Trey Knox is this. He was a guy that came into college as a wide receiver. And while in Fayetteville, he was asked to put weight on and transition to the tight end position. And so Trey Knox is one of those dudes, guys, like we've mentioned this week, right? That word potential, which can be scary because potential means you haven't done it yet. And for a guy like Trey Knox, who enters his 5th year of college football, his most productive year, guys, was as a true freshman back in 2019. He had just shy of 400 receiving yards. I was able to talk with a couple different Arkansas guys, beat reporters, 24/7, our guy Ty Richton at ESPN Arkansas, some others as well, and get their feedback and get their takes on Trey Knox, the type of player that he is, what he meant to that football team. Also got to ask Hog starting quarterback KJ Jefferson, their starting running back Rocket Sanders as well. And so it was really interesting to hear the perspective on Trey Knox and what he provided that Arkansas offense. You know, we heard from KJ, leader, a guy who's going to fit well in the locker room, a guy you like to be around. Said he would spend a lot of time throwing the football with KJ Jefferson in the offseason. Great teammate, a guy who can beat you in a multitude of ways. Rocket Sanders echoed those same sentiments. But you talk to, again, the beat reporters and those who cover the team locally, those who can see past the player speak, the coach speak, what have you. And to be transparent, it was a mixed bag. I mean, honestly, it was a mixed bag. Because as we all know, there's more to playing the tight end position than just catching passes. There's also being a guy on the end of the offensive line, protecting your quarterback, assisting in the run game. And to say there were mixed reviews about Trey Knox as a well-rounded tight end would be putting it lightly. This is a kid that's got a lot to prove in Trey Knox. He's the best of the group, no doubt. He's done it at the SEC level. He's produced for another SEC school. But he will be looking, no doubt, for his breakout season because, again, never named all conference. Never a guy that, you thought of as one of the 3 or 4 best tight ends in the league. A solid pickup, no doubt, a solid addition. And South Carolina fans will jump straight to, well, he's better than anybody we had a season ago. This group of tight ends is better than anybody we had a season ago. And I'm sure many folks out there actually believe that. But I think what those statements, a lot of that stems from, is Gamecock fans want to win the breakup, man. Nobody wants to lose the breakup. And the breakup I'm talking about is the Jaheim Bell saga. Nobody's going to go on record and say, well, Trey Knox is a nice piece, but Jaheim Bell was better and will be better at Florida State. I think Trey Knox can be a really nice piece in this offense. You think about the factor also that his position coach, Dowell Loggins, is now the Gamecocks offensive coordinator. That matters. I mean, that makes a difference, no doubt. I think the tight end will be utilized in this offense, and I think that should provide Trey Knox opportunities to show off that skill set, to be a big part of this Gamecocks offense, to provide a third down option, a safety valve for Spencer Rattler, and have the breakout campaign that Trey Knox has been searching for since his college career started 5 years ago. But all in all, you look at the group, you look at the depth, there's nice pieces, there's talent, there's upside. There's one guy that's proven. There's one guy who's done it at the SEC level, and that is Trey Knox, the former Arkansas transfer. Guys, that being said, let's keep the conversation rolling because, again, we are on a roll. Speaking of Trey Knox, I want to get into this. What will define success for the Gamecocks tight ends this upcoming season? Throw it to the tight end more. If South Carolina just does that, many of you will say it's a success. And I know that's the running joke, right? Because it feels like no other fan base loves to ask their head coach more than South Carolina fans. No other fan base likes to ask, hey, coach, are we going to throw it to the tight end this year? Where's the tight end? Why aren't we throwing it to the tight end? The tight end, the tight end, over and over and over. But to be fair, when you look at the history of South Carolina, you look at the great tight ends that have come through, some of those great athletes, I understand it. So when you speak on success for this group, let's start with Trey Knox, who is the undisputed leader of that room. Coming over from Arkansas, was a solid player for the Razorbacks. I would not call him elite, but was a solid player. Here are a couple of facts about Trey Knox. Because this is a dude that's got a ton of hype, splashed. He flashed in the spring game. And you look at him as a physical specimen, the size, 6'7", 240 pounds. You know who this kind of reminds me of? Not from the production side of things, but the hype just because of a stature. Former Gamecocks wide receiver E.J. Jenkins, who you might recall followed Jason Brown a couple of years ago. And this is a totally different scenario, obviously, because Trey Knox comes from Arkansas. But I mean that in the sense that a lot of the hype and the buzz are coming just because you look at Trey Knox and you're like, this is a dude. He should be elite. He's a guy that intimidates you the second he gets off the bus. But the facts about Trey Knox are this. Last year, 26 catches, 296 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Trey Knox does not have a touchdown against a Power 5 opponent since October of 2021. Safe to say for this season to be a success for Trey Knox, that streak has to get snapped sooner rather than later. But it's a mind-blowing stat when you think about it, because you look back at Arkansas. Was it his fault underachieving? Was it KJ Jefferson's fault not getting the ball to him? Was it Kendall Briles' fault for not scheming him more in the offense? Like, what was it? Because Knox was a physical specimen then too, guys. But for whatever reason, he has not been productive against quality competition. It goes without saying Trey Knox must snap that streak, must be productive for South Carolina, especially in the big games. Now, fairly or unfairly, this is how I'm going to define success for Trey Knox and for a lot of these tight ends. And this is where the conversation is going to get really interesting. And I had very strong comments, guys, back in December when Jaheim Bell decided he was going to hit the transfer portal and eventually, of course, land at Florida State. You might recall my stand on business rant that I had. But the popular thing, the message I've heard from many Gamecock fans is this tight end room, it's a total upgrade from last year. Trey Knox, upgrade over Jaheim Bell. Jaheim Bell, he's trash. He sucks, which we could go down a whole other rabbit hole of how funny it is that, this time last year, Gamecock fans were touting Jaheim Bell as the best playmaker in the SEC. Now that he's not wearing garnet and black and it's garnet and gold, well, you know the rest. Jaheim Bell in 2022 had 492 all-purpose yards. I believe only 231 of those are receiving because he also played running back late in the season as well, as we all know. But 492 all-purpose yards for Jaheim Bell last year and 5 touchdowns to his credit. For this season to be a success for Trey Knox and him to be the upgrade and South Carolina to win the breakup like so many Gamecock fans want, I got to see Trey Knox surpass those numbers. 492 all-purpose yards, 5 touchdowns. That's what you lost when Jaheim Bell went to Florida State. Will Trey Knox surpass those numbers? If he's the dude everybody says he is, then yes. If South Carolina wants to win the breakup, then yes, he must surpass those numbers. I think also for Trey Knox, simply just being the top red zone target and safety valve for Spencer Rattler, as I mentioned previously, having a presence, man. I mean, it's just been a while since South Carolina, and blame it on Marcus Satterfield, the lack of utilization, the mismanagement, the malpractice. Use every negative adjective you want. But Trey Knox has got the potential. I mean, there's no question. He's got the potential to be one of South Carolina's top targets in this passing game. He needs to do that. Now, is there a statistic to quantify that? I mean, touchdown catches, sure. But I think you'll know, right? I think you'll know. And Trey Knox needs to be, and with all due respect to Austin Stogner, Trey Knox needs to be what Gamecock fans were hoping Austin Stogner was going to be. And I think he can. And finally, guys, when you define success for Trey Knox, assist South Carolina in the running game and pass blocking. Up front on the line of scrimmage, hand the dirt with the big uglies. That's what I heard from Arkansas guys more than anything. Hey, he needs to work on his blocking. He's a guy that he's not a great blocker. He's not a great blocker. And I don't look at Trey Knox as a one-dimensional tight end. He needs to be able to do both. If he's going to be on the field all the time, he's going to be asked to block. He's got to take the next step and at least not be a deficiency. The offensive line's already a question mark. If Trey Knox is also a liability, that's going to make it even tougher on you. Moving off of Knox into Joshua Simon, who we spent a lot of time talking about yesterday, the Western Kentucky transfer. For him this season, success is just be a nice complimentary piece to Trey Knox. That's it. I don't think he's got to do anything crazy. I mean, this is a guy, listen, second team all-conference at the Conference USA level a season ago. He doesn't have to do anything crazy, though. He doesn't have to be a 1,000-yard receiver or 500 or 600 yards. He doesn't have to do that, guys. When I look at Joshua Simon, just be the second pitch for the Gamecocks, the tight end spot. I say, and you might say these are conservative expectations, but you got to think there's going to be a transition, right? From Conference USA to the SEC. And the other thing, guys, I'll say is this, is sometimes people hear these numbers, these statistics, and they think it's almost like insulting. Like, how dare you? You don't think this guy's going to have 750 or 1,000? And it's like, there are other weapons on the offense. Every time somebody gets a touch, they're taking away a touch from someone else. So you tell me, you want to take away touches from Juice Wells? You want to take away touches from Trey Knox? You want to take away touches from Xavier Legette? Who are you taking touches from? So I look at Joshua Simon. If he can give me 250 or more receiving yards and 2 or more touchdowns, I think that's a success. I think he did a really solid job in taking some of the heat and taking some of the pressure off of Trey Knox, because you have to imagine that Trey Knox is going to be the guy who draws the majority of the attention. Finally, guys, I look at success for the tight end room. Build quality depth. I mean, outside of your top 2, it's sort of a mystery. Nick Elksnis is the Florida transfer. Connor Cox is a nice freshman piece. Reed McKeeska, you got others in the room as well. Just build quality depth, because Trey Knox has got one final year. I think Joshua Simon, I believe he's on his last one as well. I have to double check. Either way, you need to build depth here. Some of these young guys, need to show some signs of promise, if you will. And you've got some quality talent in there. Again, with Elksnis, Connor Cox, McKeeska, you got great size in that room. But build quality depth. And then finally, guys, I mentioned Jaheim Bell and what he did last year and surpassing that and showing that you have upgraded the tight end room like so many say. Last year, Gamecocks tight ends had 925 all-purpose yards a season ago. For this season to be a success for this group, I'm looking for 1,000 or more all-purpose yards in 2023. Does that sound like a lot? Maybe. But in this pass-happy attack, this pass-heavy offense that Dowell Loggins is going to run, I think the tight end is going to be more utilized. And you got to think some guys outside of Knox and Simon step up and are able to haul in some catches and be threats, if you will, because they love to use the tight end. You have to utilize your depth. I think 1,000 or more yards, is it a lofty goal, a lofty expectation? Maybe so, but I think it's doable. I think it's doable for this group. I really do. I think there's talent in this group to make it happen. So 1,000 or more all-purpose yards for the Gamecocks tight ends in 2023. I think it's doable. We'll see if they can get the job done this season. Guys, let's jump into another break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Friday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Friday, August the 4th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. What an exciting week it has been on this side of things, hanging out with you guys all week long. I truly do appreciate it. Before we jump into and we conclude, we wrap up talking Gamecocks tight ends. Again, do not forget, we've got our Q&A Power Hour in hour number 3. In hour number 2, we have my good friend Jake Crane of Crane & Company jumping on the show. We'll be talking a lot of college football realignment, as that seems to be the hot topic of conversation right now. We had a comment earlier, and we'll go ahead and jump into it. I was asked to rehash my grades for both the wide receivers and the running backs. I'll give you quarterbacks as well. Quarterbacks was an A. Running backs was a D+. Wide receivers was a B. And when you look at the Gamecocks tight ends room, it's funny. I was looking back at this time last year and the grades that I was giving the position units for that football team a season ago. And it's funny. I gave South Carolina's tight end group going into 2022 an A-. I mean, we were really high on the tight ends. You think about the hype train that was at that point. South Carolina's coming off the Duke's Mayo Bowl victory. Jaheim Bell having the game of his career. And I think we all expected that Jaheim Bell would be not just South Carolina's most explosive playmaker in the 2022 season, but probably one of the best in college football as well. Well, safe to say it never happened. And the tight end room was somewhat of a mystery, misutilization by Marcus Satterfield. Nate Atkins ended up emerging and being really the hero of that room, especially late in the season. It was a room that massively underachieved. Austin Stogner, who came over from Oklahoma with Spencer Rattler, he never really lived up to the hype either that Gamecock fans created for him. Fast forward to 2023. Not a single face, not a single name that was in that room a season ago is on this roster. I mean, you look across the board, guys. It is a brand new group. And I'll refresh your memory. Trey Knox from Arkansas, Joshua Simon from Western Kentucky, Nick Elksnis from Florida, Maurice Brown II, Connor Cox, Reed McKeeska, Lucas Vosen, and Cameron Sandlin, who's probably going to play the running back position. So Sandlin, maybe we don't count, but he is listed as a tight end in the media guide. And I've already caught some flack for this grade, believe it or not, which I think is somewhat surprising. I graded South Carolina's wide receivers at a B. And that's with an all-conference performer, I think the best at his position in that room, returning. And something people have to understand. I will explain myself yet again. When we give these grades, it's not a grade of talent. It's not a grade of potential. All of these rooms have talent. All of these rooms have upside. Guys, here's a spoiler. There's not a team in the SEC that doesn't have talent or potential or upside. But when you hand out grades, you have to go off of what you know. So you look at this Gamecocks tight ends room. I think Trey Knox was a really solid pickup out of the transfer portal. You look at his career at Arkansas, you look at the measurables first thing. 6'7", 240. The ideal build for what you want at tight end. Big enough to put his hand in the dirt and block, but also athletic enough to go out, catch passes, and make plays. With that being said, though, never really popped for the Razorbacks. I mean, call it for what it is. Never had a season of more than 400 yards receiving. And last year, the numbers were very subtle. I also mentioned previously, no touchdowns for Trey Knox against Power 5 competition since October of 2021. So the potential's there. The upside is there. But there's 4 years of data and stats and analysis that say he's a solid player, but nothing more. And then there's Joshua Simon, who has caught all the local hype, local buzz, the hoopla, if you will. All conference performer at Conference USA. And I'm very optimistic, guys. I mean, almost half of his catches last year at Western Kentucky, almost half went for touchdowns. So I think that can provide a really good 1-2 punch. But there is a transition coming from Western Kentucky to the SEC. As I mentioned yesterday, you can't beat your chest about how good the SEC is and then say, well, it's the same thing as playing at Western Kentucky. It's not. You know it's not. I know it's not. It's not. Doesn't mean he can't be a really good player and be productive, but we haven't seen it at the SEC level. And then beyond that, guys, I mean, the room's a humongous question mark. Nobody else has even played. I mean, Nick Elksnis at Florida got on the field a couple of times for special teams. He didn't play. And everybody else is a true freshman. McKeeska, Connor Cox. I mean, again, guys that were highly rated, not saying they're bad at all. They could turn out to be the next greatest tight ends in school history, but they haven't played. Many of them have never played a collegiate snap before. So with all that being said, and I think this, guys, I think the thing that's going to help this tight end room more than anything is Dowell Loggins and the utilization, the proper utilization of the tight end position. That being said, I'm grading the Gamecocks tight ends at a C+ grade, which I think is very fair. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of upside there. And C+ doesn't mean you're terrible, guys. That's not what it means at all. Remember what I said. When I give grades, my grades are comparing the position group to the rest of the SEC. And right now, I'd say this group, top to bottom, it's middle of the pack. If not slightly below that, 8th or 9th best in the SEC. There's a lot of good tight ends in this league. So I'm not saying Trey Knox is a bad player or Joshua Simon's going to be a bad player, but did South Carolina win the breakup over Jaheim Bell? We don't know yet. That's the fact. We don't know. Trey Knox has never had more total yards in a season than Jaheim Bell had last year. And I understand half of those came at the running back position, but the point still stands. I've heard all offseason Trey Knox is an upgrade over Jaheim Bell. He very well may be. In the locker room, I think it's safe to say he absolutely is. As a teammate, hell yeah. But on the field, statistically, I don't know. I don't know that Trey Knox is head and shoulders above and better than Jaheim Bell was. Is the duo of Trey Knox and Joshua Simon better than Jaheim Bell and Austin Stogner? It very well could be. I'm expecting it to be. But we don't know yet. We don't know yet. And so with that being said, tons of talent, tons of upside. It's also a lot of question marks, similar to many other position groups on this football team. So a C+ grade is what you get from me when it comes to the Gamecocks tight ends, which I think is fair. Very fair. Potential and upside to finish above, no doubt. And a lot of this room will hinge on Trey Knox having his breakout collegiate season. He can do that, all of a sudden things change. But as I mentioned before, some guys, they get into their 5th season and maybe they pop. But some guys, they play 4 years of college football. Some guys just are what they are. And what Trey Knox is will go a long way in the success of the tight end position this season. Guys, we're going to jump into another break. On the other side, we've got my good friend Jake Crane of Crane & Company on the show, talking all things Gamecocks, SEC, college football, everything in between. Guys, you're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Friday, August the 4th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. And our tight end position unit preview is concluded. Next week, we'll get into offensive line on Tuesday. Boy, that'll be a lot of fun. A lot of fun talking Gamecocks offensive line. Chase Floyd, I graded the tight end room a C+. Was Bruin asking? I graded the tight end room a C+. Coach Ford, what's going on, my man? He's back in here. Says, we have no idea. Too many unknown players and a complete unknown in Loggins. He says, you think Loggins will utilize them better based on what? Coach Ford, that's a great question. And maybe it's just a pure guess. But, I mean, Dowell Loggins did coach tight ends at Arkansas. So you would think 2 + 2 is 4. You would think that Dowell Loggins would understand the importance of the tight end position and utilizing them. And I mean, again, this is a guy in Trey Knox. He coached, so he knows what works for him. He knows what ways to use him. I just assume, Coach Ford, that with his experience coaching tight ends, that he would know the value of them. Coach Ford says, will you grade Dowell Loggins? I will not do that. I will not do that. I will not do that at this point. Because listen, it's a blank slate. I mean, it's a blank slate. The only thing we have to go off of is his NFL career. And Coach Ford, you know that I've been as critical as any. I mean, I'm right there with you. I don't even think my analysis of Dowell Loggins, I don't even think it's critical. I think it's just real. Like, the facts are he was part of some really horrific offenses in the NFL. The other fact, he was part of some bad teams that led to those bad offenses. Another fact is he went to Arkansas and learned under Kendall Briles the past couple of years. And the other fact is he's never called a play at the collegiate level, so we don't know, good or bad, which way it's going to go. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Like, to insinuate that you know that he's going to be a wild success or a massive failure, I think it's just wrong. I mean, and so you can question the resume. I mean, listen, and I think that's what happened is, like, I remember when Marcus Satterfield departed, left, was fired, whatever you want to call it. We all said to ourselves, what do the Gamecocks need in the next OC? Well, they need to make a splash. They need to make a splash. They need to hire a name. They need to get a big-time OC. Dowell Loggins might turn to that 5 years from now. Heck, 2 years from now. Dowell Loggins could be the hottest name in the offensive coordinator market. But he was not when he was hired. I mean, it's funny to see any Gamecock fan raise an eyebrow at anything I have to say, because I remember the night that the Dowell Loggins rumors started and people lost their collective minds. Who is Dowell Loggins? Who? What are we doing? What are we doing? Look at it. And then same people are like, oh, let Beamer cook. Let Dowell cook. Like, weren't you the same one? You know what? Never mind. Anyways, I've got high hopes for Loggins. And, I mean, there's no excuse. The offense better be better. Bottom line. So we'll see. We'll see. Twitter was wild that night, Ruin Nation. Twitter was wild. And it ain't because Dowell Loggins was an all-star, right, Ruin Nation? It didn't go wild for that reason. Gamecock Twitter lost its collective minds that night. That Dowell Loggins sort of became known as, like, the front runner for the OC. Like, I never knew. I knew when, like, I went through the whole head coach search with Beamer, post Muschamp, whatever, and, like, that was electric. That was great for views and downloads, and, like, people just wanted to know, like, who's the coach going to be. I would have never thought that an offensive coordinator hiring would move the needle to that degree. I never thought that. So, anyways, it's just a question mark. I mean, that's what it is. It's just a question mark. And for me to sit here and tell you it's going to be a massive success, it's not fair, because you don't know. And for me to sit here and say it's going to be a massive failure, it's not fair, because we don't know. So I've said my piece in the Loggins hire. Again, I don't think anything I've said, you might think it's harsh. I don't think anything I ever said about the hire was unfair. So that's that. Anyways, find some joy, he says. Indeed. You know who helps us find joy on Fridays? My guy Jake Crane of Crane & Company. You know what takes away from his joy? Conference realignment. So I'm sure he'd be happy if we started the conversation as he tries to get his camera situated. Okay, looks like Jake is good. All right, cool. Anyways, we'll get him on here. Jake Crane, Crane & Company, joins the show every Friday. As I mentioned, Jake, something that brings you no joy is the conference realignment stuff. So I'm not going to start there, my friend. But first off, how you doing, man? It's great to see you.
Man, I'm doing great. Awesome to see football on the TV last night. Even though it was the Jets and Browns, it's still real to me, damn it. But no, look, here's my thing. Obviously, we got to talk about it, right? It's something we have to talk about, but it seems like it's all anybody's talked about. We got fall camp kicking off. We got guys taking reps. We got guys winning and losing jobs. We got coaches staying up, all through the night and early in the morning, man. I'm ready to talk about the stuff that happens on the field.
Same here, Jake. So before we get into all that conference realignment, the stuff we kind of have to get to because it's relevant, I want to jump to your Twitter timeline and ask you about this tweet. I think this will be fun. You tweeted this out about an hour ago, actually. Fall camp lesson number 3. Leaving tape on the locker room floor makes me know I can't trust you to make the play. For those who have never been in a locker room or haven't been on a football team or a team of any kind that are tuned in, explain why that's so important.
Yeah, and you know, I think Ed Reed may have had the best speech ever on this in talking about him at Miami and in the NFL. You know, one of the reasons football is one of the greatest, if it's the greatest sport in my opinion, obviously the best team sport, is because how you live your life off the field, how you take care of what's yours, how you take care of each other. That's the difference on 4th and 1. It's not all the pregame speeches. It's not all the trash talk. It's about how you take care of your business, doing the little things. That's what it is. It's a moniker for the little things. How am I supposed to come in here and be at my best? It's like the people who say, you know, if you want to change your life, start cleaning up your room every day. You got a dirty room, make sure your room's clean. It's amazing when you lift the standard outside of on the field, how your standard on the field continues to rise and you're forever chasing that standard. So it's something, if you've ever been in a locker room where the coach, there's times where we had to run after practice and then we had to run guys after because there was one thing left on the floor. Because if you're willing to leave one thing on the floor, you're willing to cheat a rep in the weight room. You're willing to not pay attention for a couple minutes in the meeting room when it may come down to that play or that adjustment or that new terminology or that new combination or that new run stunt on the field. So it's a moniker about who you are and how you handle your business. And that's what we try and do, man, at Crane & Company, and you do a great job at it too, is we call it winning the water cooler, man. I'm trying to take your ass inside the locker room. Fans want to get as close to the game as possible. I'm trying to basically do everything but give you a helmet, shoulder pads, and let you go get a little taste.
I love it. Jake, moving to the realignment stuff. As you mentioned, Brett McMurphy posting this, Oregon and Washington, they're going to the Big Ten. Arizona's headed to the Big 12. Of course, USC, UCLA, that's already happened. They're in the Big Ten. Thoughts on just this whirlwind? We've heard from Florida State. They won out of the ACC, which I guess isn't necessarily a surprise, but like there's real traction out of them getting the hell out of there. We've heard the rumors of them, Clemson, Big Ten bound maybe. I mean, you're just overall thought on this storm of realignment and then the Pac-12, man. I mean, do they have any hope of survival at this point?
No. Kate Winslet won't move over on the door. They're going to freeze to death in the water. Here's where I'm at. As long as, because I want college football to be as healthy as possible, right? I want college football to be at its strongest all across the country. I want people to love it on the West Coast. I want people to love it on the East Coast. I want people to love it in the South. I want people to love it in the North. I want people to love it in the Midwest. The on-the-field product right now is as good as it's ever been. Not just the talent that's on the field, but schematically, the adjustments, the amount of information that guys are able to not only attain, but retain, and that's what counts. Now, depending on who you root for and where you're at, depends on how you feel, I think, about conference realignment. If you're a fan of the Pac-12, well, you're really worried right now, and you should be, because I think the house just fell on the witch. Arizona State, Utah, I think they're gone too. Oregon and Washington going to the Big 12 or Big 10, smart move for multiple reasons. One, they're big brands. I don't think people realize how much money Washington pumps into athletics. I think they're top 7 in the country. We know Oregon, I mean, they got walking around money to spend. Nobody's worried about making $1 over there. But what you've done now since USC and UCLA went to the Big Ten, you obviously have 2 schools over here on the fringe, everybody else here. Well, you've got to at some point build that bridge in between. And it's not for football. USC and UCLA can afford to go play a Big Ten schedule, get on the plane, go a couple days early, stay in a nice hotel, have a place to practice. It's for the smaller sports that, by the way, play pretty much double, sometimes triple the games, right? And don't have the revenue to be able to just hop on the plane and go all these different places. So when you build that bridge, you take a little bit of pressure, not just off the budget, but off the schedule makers too, because that's a tough ordeal to go through. And we hear about all these changes, and it sounds like it's happening very fast to us. Oh, well, they just announced a Board of Regents meeting. Something's going down. But these things, it's like the military. We get 30 years of technology that they've had. We're 30 years behind the military in what they have technology-wise. These moves have been being put together for a long time. we just see the end result of it. We're just now getting the Google Maps of it, per se, when it comes down to that analogy. But when you look at the ACC, they're in trouble too, Chris. They're in big trouble. Not just because of the contract that a lot of these teams are locked into, souring them and the revenue sharing, but who are you going to go get? Who's out there that you can go get and say, you know what? Man, we feel really good about our future. That's why what Brett Yormark in the Big 12 did was very smart. Calculated aggression. UCF, pretty big brand, huge market. Cincinnati, pretty big brand, huge market. Houston, growing brand that's really good, humongous market. And BYU, it's a religion, dog. So, like, outside of, who you going to go get? If you're the ACC, what's the answer? Who's going to come in and save you? I'll hang up and listen because there's not a lot of answers out there. So Notre Dame, that's why they're the sexiest girl at the dance right now, because they got that NBC contract. They're a big brand. They're going to have to hop in at some point. But outside of that, man, I mean, what's the Mountain West and what's left of the Pac-12 going to come together? I never thought I'd see a time when we had a caller calling our show. This is where it's at right now. Boise State fan from Idaho. Cade, I think, from Idaho. Shout out Cade. He called in and said, man, I've been a Boise State fan my whole life. My dream has been for us to be in the Pac-12. Now with the Pac-12 called, I don't think I want to go. Just think about that for a second. That's how much college football has changed.
And you talk about, Jake, the future of college football, and us as SEC guys, I think we're on the right side of this thing because the SEC is obviously in great position. They're in great.
A-bomb.
Yeah,
we got
exactly.
Oppenheimer.
Texas, OU, obviously jumping in next year. You'll be at 16 teams. I know the SEC isn't in the mode of, I think, expanding or adding right now, although Greg Sankey, you know that if the right team came around, I mean, he's a forward-thinking commissioner, the best commissioner in college sports. I know you and I both agree. But if they were to hypothetically add 2 more or 4 more, let's say next summer or 2 years from now or what have you, it's obviously going to depend on who's available. But, like, are there any out there you think would be natural fits or would be value adds to the SEC? I look at maybe like a North Carolina. You take the entire state of North Carolina, that market. I think Florida State could make a lot of sense. I think a Clemson, I mean, saying that as a Gamecock fan might sound blasphemous, but to me, they're an SEC school in the ACC anyways. These teams might go to the Big Ten, but like just for fun, if the SEC were to say be a 20-team league, who would you think the other 4 would be, or who do you think would at least make sense in that conversation?
Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia Tech. Those are the 4 right there. Now, the part that here's what's going on with Florida State and Clemson. And look, I like Jack McGuire a lot, right? And I think somebody probably did tell him that. But the question is, it's not where do you want to go, it's how are you going to get there? I'm not a lawyer, right? Never been a lawyer. Probably would have been a pretty decent one. Would have tried to probably been defense attorney. I don't know what I really think about it, but I'm not one. I don't know how Florida State or any of these ACC teams can get out of this grant of rights deal. Lawyers will always find a way to make an argument. Sometimes you don't have a great argument. It's like they say, when you have the facts, pound the facts. When you have the law, pound the law. When you have neither, pound the table. I think what Florida State's doing right now is pounding the table because they're posturing for the SEC. And it'll be a cold day in hell before I believe that Greg Sankey and the SEC, they say, oh, nobody wants to be the supervillain. Nobody wants to go snatch up these teams. Dude, the motto of the conference is it just means more. Hell, while I work, the thing is facts don't care about your feelings, right? Florida State is telling everybody we're open for business. And they're trying to posture to make the Big Ten try and find a way somehow. I don't know if Fox is going to send Batman to Tokyo to somehow rescue Florida State or send them down to Tallahassee or whatever, how they're going to get through that. But it makes Florida State, who is at their most marketable they've been in a long time. And if they have a great year this year, they're going to be even more marketable. But imagine how much easier it would be for ESPN, who owns that contract, to say, you know what, Florida State, here's what we'll do. We're in deals with the SEC. Why don't we just find a way to keep our lawyers? You keep your lawyers. We don't need these other guys over here, and find a way to bring them along. Because if ESPN were to get rid of, if the ACC were to dissolve, I think that's a $250 million bang that you get. And they need it right now. They're hurting. They're falling apart. It's a Post Malone song right now. And you know what? In my opinion, really don't hurt my feelings. But when you look at it, I don't know how Florida State or Clemson goes to the Big Ten. I think they're posturing. I think they hike their skirts up a little bit, and they're walking around downtown trying to get the SEC to look.
Jake, are you nervous about the future of the sport? Because I look at it and the conference realignment thing, you know, it's a made-for-TV sport at this point because I don't care if Southern Cal's got to travel to Rutgers. Like, I'll watch it. Like, I'm not driving to it or going from L.A. to Piscataway or what have you. But we are losing a lot of – if you're the fan that's really ingrained, entrenched in it, and you go to all the home games and you travel to 1 or 2 road games a year and you got conferences changing up and teams going to different conferences. And let's say you're a fan of one of those teams – college, and then you factor in portal and NIL. College football just looks a lot different than you are used to if you're one of those fans.
Yeah, I'll go back to what I said. The on-the-field product is as good as it's ever been, right? And that is we talk about keeping the main thing, right? What worries me the most, and look, they shouldn't have let NIL and the transfer portal just let the monster just run into the village and start ripping villagers
simultaneously too. Simultaneously. That was the crazy part.
And then say, "Oh no, we need to make rules." Building the parachute on the way down, get your ass flattened. That's what happens. Right. But the thing that worries me is when the government gets involved. Nothing good ever happens when the government gets involved. I don't want them to, and some people say, oh, it's the only way. It's the only way this can happen. No, it's not. Think about it. What if, because the NCAA and college football, they're getting further apart, right? I think the NCAA is just it's going to end up being away from college football, doubling down on college basketball and all the other sports. Why would you not just start your own college football commission and say, hey, listen, here's the deal. All these teams, these power conferences, the group of fives, you are now underneath our wing. And hell, let Greg Sankey be the czar. But you have a commission. You let Greg Sankey be the czar. You have Petiti. You have all these other guys that can help run it. And for anybody, like you have a national letter of intent, right, that you signed. It says this is the NCAA. You have to follow the rules. Why can't we just make a letter of intent that now you have to follow the commission's rules? What we don't have to let all these senators stick their hand in the pot. Like that's what it's a money grab. You haven't figured this out. It's a money grab. They want some of the money because college football is a billion-dollar industry. We need a college football commission. We need a different letter of intent that says if you're a player that wants to go play at South Carolina or play at Clemson or play at Tulane or play at Fresno State and you're under this commission, you are following our rules. And that doesn't make you an employee, right? That doesn't mess up any of the collectives in the schools. It doesn't mess up the NIL or anything. But it's the smart decision. That's why nobody will do it.
Jake, speaking of the government, which I realize is a very dangerous way to start a conversation. Speaking of the government, though.
Hold on.
Yeah. Close the blinds, right? No, you had Tommy Tuberville on your show who, spoke on NIL. I think the new bill they proposed or what have you. Explain to us, because I saw the headlines. I admittedly didn't read a lot of the fine print. Again, I know you guys spoke to him in detail. Explain what it is they're proposing, and do you think it's a good idea or not?
Well, again, the government's getting involved, so no, I don't think it's a good idea. And I told Coach Tubbs that. I got a lot of respect for Coach Tubbs, but listen, I'm not. If I want to make everybody happy, I'd sell ice cream for a living. But there's a non-starter in there. So one of the rules in the bill is you have to stay 3 years at the college, right? You have to stay there. That's never going to work. They're never going to sign off on that. It's a non-starter. Shocker. Capitol Hill put a non-poison pill in the bill. It's amazing how that actually happened. But, my rule is this. I think it should be like this. If you want to transfer, right, you want to use that one free transfer to go from South Carolina to Rutgers out of conference, great. But you should not be able to transfer from South Carolina to LSU or within the same conference for free unless your head coach is fired, let go, or takes another job. In that case, I feel like you should be able to go that even if you've already transferred once. If the head coach that you signed up to play for is gone, not the offensive coordinator, not the defensive coordinator, but the head coach, you should be able to go from South Carolina to LSU. That to me is a way to help it. But outside of that, and I think that's an easy fix, man. I think it's an easy fix. Like, but again, they won't do it. So,
Jake, when you look at ball on the field, let's talk some actual football, man.
Yeah,
Fall
let's do it.
camp is underway. South Carolina, of course, hit the field this morning. Alabama, LSU, Georgia, the elite, they've already been out there. Florida got out there earlier this week. I know you guys taught a little fall camp on your show. I believe it was this morning or yesterday morning.
Yeah.
Anything stand out? Any storylines? Any tidbits? I mean, again, I know it's fall camp, and you kind of have to read between the lines of what you hear. But what stood out to you thus far? There's tons of quarterback battles going on. There's a happy Nick Saban, which is terrifying for everyone else.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on just what's been going on with fall camp to this point?
Yeah, right now they're still in panties. Nobody knows anything.
Right.
They're running around there with shorts on. Everybody's looking good. They got their shirts pulled up, showing their abs to anybody that's walking by. So until the pads go on, no battles are going to be won. But there are storylines, right? And it starts at the quarterback position, especially when you don't have pads on yet. It's tough for a guy to win the job at guard when we're out here basically just walking through and we can't really do one-on-ones. You can't do a true inside drill and stuff like that. You look at Alabama right now. Who's going to win that one is fascinating. You look at like Joe Milton at Tennessee, right? And I want to say this, and this is what I continue to say. And I'm going to tell you what I think. Some of these guys, these sports media guys, all they do is say good things about people. Like, they say no bad things. Like, everybody's going to be good. If that's the case, then everybody's going to go undefeated. It drives me nuts. Oh, this guy's going to be a dog. This guy's got that dog. Not everybody's going to play good, bud. You might as well go ahead and say what you really think. But that's a story for another day. But when we talk about the Nick Saban picture, I'm gonna get to that. That means absolutely nothing. And here's why. People say, oh, Nick Saban's smiling. He must be happy. Everybody's in trouble. College football's in trouble. If he would have been pissed off and knocked the Coke bottle off and walked out, you know what they'd have said? Oh, Nick Saban's pissed off. Everybody's in trouble. He's back in his bag being Nick Saban. It means absolutely nothing, whether he's smiling, whether he's angry. Alabama fans are going to be excited about it because it's a way to make themselves feel better. And that's how every fan base would be, right? Oh, Nick Saban, they're going to find the good in it. Other fan bases are going to find the bad in it. And that's what makes it fun. But sitting here looking at a picture saying, oh, no, now I'm really scared of Tyler Buchner because Nick Saban was smiling coming off the podium. It's fun. It's still somewhat talking season. I get it. But look, we're not going to know until they trot out there against Texas. I don't care if he's smiling, frowning, halfway looking, drinking, whatever.
Jake, were you a happy or mean football coach or just kind of even keel? What were you during practice days, game days, everything?
Oh, during game days.
Well, practice too. I mean, I guess you flipped a different switch when it came to game day.
Oh, dude. Look, I was always real. That's what I was. I didn't go into a day or a practice saying, I'm going to be this guy today. I'm going to be pissed off today. If I felt like we weren't doing what we were supposed to do, and I treated everybody the same, right? I treated everybody the same. I don't care who your parents were, what color your skin was, what religion you were, whatever. If I felt like if I was genuinely upset, I was going to be genuinely upset. If something was going good, I was going to tell the guys when it was going good too. But I had one rule. I would never walk off the field with me being mad at you or you being mad at me. If something happened and we need to talk about it, we can talk about it. And I treated them like adults. I talked to them like adults, right? Until you show me that you're a child, I will treat you like you're an adult. Now, if you show me you're a child, I'm going to treat you like a child. But I never went into a practice saying I need to be this guy or a meeting saying I need to be this guy. Now, on game day, I'm the most competitive cat that there is. I don't care. And I know people say that, but that's me. That guy that cares too much, that's me. And I mean, you never want to get to a point where you're so fired up that you can't operate. But there's also that threaded needle, that honey hole to where, it's a game for you too. Coaches put in a lot of work. You get juiced up too. And I've been known to give a good pregame speech or two now, especially to the group. And I'm a very honest, emotional person when it comes to that aspect. Now, when you're on during the game, it's just like anything. You're locked in. I'm at work. That's what I'm doing. I'm having to see. Not that I can't get you fired up. Not that I may not rip some ass every now and then. But I'm at work, and this is what I do best. So there's a good balance there, but you got to be yourself. And in recruiting too. When I'd go recruit, I would laugh at some of these 35, 40, 50-year-old men that would go in there and just try and be hip and be cool. Like, what's up? Try and be somebody else. And I used to think to myself, if you're being fake, who can spot a fake quicker than anybody? It's a 17 or 18-year-old kid, because they see it every day. They're in high school. That's the fakest time of your life. So I always felt being real was the best policy.
Jake, you speak on the pregame speeches, and I know you're a college football diehard like I, so you probably recall back in the day when Mark May and Lou Holtz used to do his weekly the pregame speech thing he'd do on ESPN and give a speech to this team, that team. You got to be careful, because I might start asking you on Fridays, all right, put yourself in Beamer's shoes. What are you saying to the Gamecocks before this game? We might just have you give one big speech the Friday before UNC. I'll be like, all right, Jake, give your speech to Gamecocks football going into 2023 season. Save it for then. I think that might have to be a thing.
No, look, we can do
That'll
it.
be great.
You don't ever forget that. But by the way, I got a really good Lou Holtz impression.
Well, now, you can't drop that bomb and then just skirt out of here. I think that's one you got to.
Well, what? Tell me about Lou Holtz.
Or you want to save it till then? I don't care either way, but that's notable information.
It isn't. Well, what killed me about Lou Holtz when he was on ESPN was they'd ask him any question, it would always revert back to Notre Dame, regardless of what the question was. They'd be like, Reese Davis would be like, Lou, man, what do you think about Texas Tech versus Kansas State this week? He's like, man, that's such a good game. He's like, but let me tell you about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this week. Listen, you got Jesus Christ himself, anointed Jesus Christ, laying it on the field in the end zone. It would always go back, and his cadence, he'd start talking fast, and then we see that's just what they do when they believe in themselves. But then, as Notre Dame, it just geeks me, man. It just always used to geek me. Mark May used to laugh every time. But I'll tell you a funny Lou Holtz story real quick. Mm-hmm. My father played in the Japan Bowl, and Lou Holtz was coaching. And, it's guys from all different areas, whatever. He said the first practice, Lou Holtz started talking to the team. And some of the guys had never heard him talk before. And, he started talking, and three of them, busted out laughing. They thought it was a joke. They thought he was, joking and making a joke. And he kicked them out. Made him fly all the way back home from Japan. So I tell you, man, Lou was a hell of a coach, but man, he used to geek me with that voice, man. That's he's got that back lisp.
Well, again, we'll save the 2023 season hype up speech from Jake Crane for then that Friday before UNC will be a good time. Jake, one last thing before I get you out of here. The news of the week for South Carolina, Dylan Stewart, 2024 5-star edge out of the DMV. He commits. Just overall thoughts, man, on what Shane Beamer's building. Obviously it had been a slow last couple of months in regards to, headliner commitments or blue chippers. But, boy, what a way to kick off the month of August, and what great momentum to carry into the 2023 season, getting the commitment of a guy like Dylan Stewart.
Yeah, well, I didn't have – I think I even tweeted out, I didn't have Shane Beamer, pantsing Ryan Day in front of the whole high school at the graduation on my bingo card. Here's what I'll say. And when I break down South Carolina this year, everybody's talking about Spencer Rattler. And I think it's got more to do with how good South Carolina is up front. Spencer Rattler can't do it all by himself. Spencer Rattler will go as far as the offensive line is able to protect him. All right, South Carolina will go as far as the offensive line and the defensive line. That's what it's going to come down to. It always does. But how you bridge the gap to get where South Carolina fans want to go, right, to be able to compete for championships, you don't do it just with wide receivers. You don't do it with DBs. You do it with guys like Dylan Stewart, guys that can rush the passer, guys that are good enough to spill and box the run, and you do it up front. How did Georgia elevate themselves to the top of college football? They did it up front. How did Michigan elevate themselves past Ohio State? They did it up front. How did Oklahoma State and Baylor and Kansas State last year elevate themselves in the Big 12 and TCU? They did it up front. How did Utah do it in the Pac-12? They did it up front. That's what it comes down to. You have to not only have a good starting five on the offensive line, you have to have 7 to 8. You can't just have a good starting 4 on the defensive line. You've got to have 6 to 7. And you got to have dogs. And Dylan Stewart is a damn dog. And you're going to see it. You're going to see it. Y'all seen Jadeveon. I'm not saying he's going to be Jadeveon. But if you want to compete with Georgia consistently, you want to compete with Tennessee consistently, in Alabama, guys like Dylan Stewart, that's the bullet train to get there. And that's why it's such a big deal.
Jake, to your point, Dowell Loggins had this to say, the Gamecocks OC just 2 days ago, quote, "The offensive line will be as good as they go this year," end quote. So there you have it.
Coaches know.
Coaches know. That's what it comes down to. Jimmy's and Joe's, my friend. Jimmy's and Joe's. Jake Crane of Crane and Company. Jake, it's always a pleasure, my friend. I appreciate taking the time. Looking forward to doing it again next week.
Definitely, man. And I just want to let everybody know we're almost to 100,000 on YouTube. We got a great interview with Shane Beamer over there too. David Cohn was his first offer was from Shane Beamer when he was at Mississippi State. They got a real cool interview. If you guys go to YouTube, it's CRAIN, Crane and Company. Go check it out. Go subscribe. And Chris, we got to get you on there soon as well, my friend.
Yeah, my man. Congrats to you guys for the success, by the way. 100K, that's big time. Appreciate y'all.
You too, man. I still got my Beamer ball towel too. Don't think I forgot.
I love it. We'll re-up you for this season with some other merch. I got you.
Please. We got more hand towels than Bed Bath & Beyond used to have. They're out of business now. But no, I appreciate it, brother. Y'all be good.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Great stuff. Jake Crane, man. What a legend he is. Always a blast talking ball with him. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. But on the other side, I want to hear from you, your questions, your comments, your calls, and more in our Q&A Power Hour here on this Friday. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Friday, August the 4th, 2023. Electric stuff as always as we close out another successful week here on TDC on the Spurs Up Show, guys. We're opening it up for you, taking your questions, your comments, your calls as well. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Again, want to say thank you to Jake Crane. Great stuff. Great stuff as always. Really exciting conversation, and always look forward to having Jake on the show every single Friday. Cannot wait during the season as well. He was great last season. We're going to be talking to Jake all things Gamecocks, but SEC as well, going through each and every single SEC football game. And that's something, guys, I'm really excited about when you look at our guest lineup. On Mondays, we have Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. He can talk all things Gamecocks, SEC, and national. On Tuesdays, we have J.C. Sherbert. He'll focus on all things Gamecocks and recruiting. On Wednesdays, we're going to have Chris Marler, of course, which is a new addition. But Chris Marler joins us now on Wednesdays beginning next week. He can talk all things Gamecocks, SEC, national if we need. Thursdays, we have Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate, which I feel like Mark's kind of his own niche. He can talk all things Gamecocks, SEC, Clemson if we need it. I think national as well. That's what Mark Ryan does, a national radio show. And then Fridays, Jake Crane, who, of course, can talk all things Gamecocks, SEC, national. So we're going to be able to cover so much in this college football season because we have so many guests who are so enlightened, in the loop, etc., and talk all things, not just South Carolina, not just a South Carolina scope, but really getting out and about, broadening our horizons to the entire SEC. With that being said, the Q&A Power Hour is underway. I want to hear from each and every single one of you. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. I was asked earlier about Jonathan Paylor. Jonathan Lee said, Chris, Gamecock or Wolfpack, I'm not a crystal ball guy. I don't do crystal balls. If I had to put one in, though, I'd go NC State. Just based off what we heard with NIL and, the latest momentum, what have you. And it sounds like the relationship that Jonathan Paylor has with the Gamecocks coaching staff is really solid, but there are other factors at play. So, kids choose schools for different reasons, and I do think Jonathan Paylor will choose NC State tonight at 6 o'clock. Also, what's his name again? I forget. The Duck. What's his name again? Is it Landon? I want to make sure I get his name right. Duckworth. Yes, Duckworth. Landon Duckworth. Committing tonight also at 6. A 2026 quarterback prospect. Sounds like he will be a Gamecock. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Jeff Gullidge, you got your tight end grade. What's your feedback? I'd love to hear from you. Let's see. I Am Legend. Are you going to be at game day? I will not be there, I Am Legend. We'll be right here in the studio creating content. Cannot wait to do that, honestly. Cannot wait. Creating content, though, covering the game from the studio. And then right after the game, we will have our post-game call-in show. We'll take all of your questions, your comments, and more right after the conclusion of South Carolina and North Carolina. Going to be a lot of fun. Let's continue through the questions. Let's see. A lot of Jonathan Paylor talk. Chase Floyd says it's payday. Join the BCC today to get access to the Discord. It's just like a message board, but better. Yeah, I'd say it's a message board on steroids is the best way to describe it. John Edwards says, I give the tight ends a B-. So we're splitting hairs. If I'm saying C+, you're saying B-. We're pretty damn close, John Edward. We're pretty damn close. Spur Daddy, I think all those stats for Knox will double this year. He's going to be one of Rattler's main targets. Justin says, if I might interject, and with all due respect, Bell's a good tight end, but he went to FSU. Not a knock on them, but they play in the ACC. So he went to a lesser conference. We won the breakup. Justin, I don't think that's how that works. I disagree with you. I mean, Florida State's a preseason top 10 team, thought of as a college football playoff contender. I don't give a damn what conference he's in. Those are the facts. So, I mean, there are reasons that you could argue South Carolina has won the breakup already. I'm just saying that I don't know that that's one of them. I mean, people are going to argue, Justin, yeah, he's in the ACC, but he went to a better team. So, I don't know. Anyways, let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Jeff.
Jeff, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Chris?
Not much, man. Just hanging out. What's up?
Awesome. So, hey, just so everybody understands, remind us the grade that you gave the running backs and the reason why.
Yeah, so I graded the running backs a D+, and it's simply just because lack of proven bodies. I mean, when your leading returning rusher has 167, I believe, yards rushing from the previous season, it's not a great place to start. And then you're banking on a Division II transfer, a true freshman, and a former wide receiver. So, again, it's not a knock on the talent in the room, and it's certainly not a knock on the potential of the room. But as of right now, going into the room, and also where does it grade in the SEC? Where would you stack that room in the SEC if you were grading all those teams? And I mean, it'd be at the bottom. I mean, there's really no debate about it. So I gave it a D. Obviously, I think most all of these rooms, the grades I give, I think they could all finish higher. I mean, it's, this isn't a grade for end of season. It's going into it where we sit right now. So, yeah, I gave them a D overall. And I think that's the weakest position group on the football field until we see otherwise.
Right. So, I mean, I agree. And this is where I'm bringing this to you, because the lack of experience in the room, and this is where I may throw you off. I rate our tight ends lower than a C. I give them the same grade as the running backs.
Okay.
Because outside of Knox, and you stated his stats, he hasn't scored a touchdown against a Division I school all last year. He's 400 yards. So I guess my quarrel with that grade is why so high for them but not for the running backs? I think they should be even.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I guess when I compare those two, I look at least the tight ends room has a guy that has started at the tight end position at the SEC level and has been productive. I mean, I understand last year, did not have a catch or a touchdown catch against a Power 5 team. That's a very fair point. Very valid point. I'll say this, by the way, I'll take a moment to give credit to Connor O'Gara of Saturday Down South is where I got that stat that he hasn't had a touchdown catch against a Power 5 opponent since October of 21. He was the one that brought it up because he felt like the hype was too high for Trey Knox. But I look at the tight end room, and it's like at least there's a guy in that room who's been productive at the tight end position at the SEC level. I mean, Juju McDowell, I mean, he's been all right. I mean, he's been nothing more than all right. I mean, if we're being honest, his freshman year, he had like 230 yards. I mean, I think he's a very useful player. He's a nifty player in the offense. But, I mean, he's not an RB1. At least Trey Knox is a tight end number one. I mean, at least that. And then Joshua Simon complimenting him, never taking a snap at the SEC level. I mean, that's very fair. I mean, I think that's a huge question. But, at least at
Mario Anderson.
Right.
At the running back.
Yep. But to your point, I was getting there. I mean, I look at Mario Anderson, Division II. I look at Joshua Simon, at least it's Conference USA. It is, this level of football. So, I mean, it's just, it's one thing to go from FCS to SEC or FBS, another FBS school to SEC, but like Division II to SEC is a jump. I mean, it is. So, I mean, I think your point is fair. I mean, I think your point is very fair because there's a lack of experience and proven commodities in both of those rooms.
Yeah, I mean, Knox hasn't even taken a legitimate snap for us yet, so we really don't even know what he can bring to the table. Now, I, like all Gamecock fans, want him to be the greatest tight end to step on the earth here for us. But as you stated, his 4-year track record hasn't proven that yet. So don't know. I just thought when you gave it a higher grade than the running backs, I was like, because in my eyes, I was thinking they're probably about even. Not that either room's terribly horrible. We haven't seen what these guys can offer. We have all the, like you said, the potential and the hope for these guys to be good. But again, as I've stated all off season, it's coming down to the OC.
Right.
Can he call the plays? Can he make the adjustments throughout the year to get these guys who are talented enough to make the plays? Because I miss the days, and I know we beat that like a dead horse, but I miss the days of when Spurrier was there, our offense hit the field. It wasn't really a question about, are we going to score? It's who's going to score. Who are we going to get that ball to? Who's going to make that one play that scores the touchdown? I miss those days. I'm still shocked with this whole past OCs that we have had that's just so inaccurate. And I mean, they're not consistent. One week we look like we're a great football team. The next week we look like, hey, what is this brown thing here? I don't know what to do with this thing.
Yeah, and I guess that's one thing that's one thing that does give me hopes with the tight ends, my friend, is that, again, and Dowell Loggins never called a play at the collegiate level. I just feel like that. I mean, this is a guy that coached tight ends at Arkansas, and man, if he doesn't realize the value of the tight end and utilizing him in the offense, and I mean, he coached Trey Knox, you would think that relationship would help. I mean, I'd like to think the tight end will be featured.
All his weaknesses.
Right.
Like he would capitalize on all his
strengths, weaknesses, everything. Yeah.
Because he knows the guy. So, we're hopeful, but, I just wanted to, pick at you on that just because I just thought you were a little bit more generous to those tight ends than need be. And that's a position to me because I played tight end in high school when I played. So I like that position anyway. But, yeah. Anyway, but I'll get off of here, man. I just want to say appreciate everything you do. As always, I tune in. I love the show. I love the guests. Keep doing what you're doing. It's great to see you growing and moving up, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate the call, man, and thank you so much. I appreciate the perspective.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah,
anytime.
Man. Take care. No, great stuff. And listen, I mean, that's a fair point. Was I a little bit more harsh on the running backs? Maybe. I mean, I still think, though, the tight end room is a stronger group just because of the fact that, your RB1 going into the season is a guy who's never been a starting running back before. Dakereon Joyner. More than likely, DK is going to be the guy. At least you're starting tight end, your number one guy. I mean, it's a seamless transition coming from Arkansas to South Carolina. Like he's done it in the SEC. Nothing's going to surprise him. Like he's been while not explosive, at least a productive player to a degree for another SEC team. I mean, we have no clue what Dakereon Joyner is going to do at running back. We have no clue what anybody in that room is going to do at running back. So that's why I give more of a nod to the tight end position. And then Joshua Simon, Taylor makes the point. Yes, you are correct. Conference USA to SEC, that's also a large jump. People get tired of me talking about the adjustment from whatever conference you're coming from to the SEC. But back to what I said, you can't beat your chest about how good the SEC is. And then when somebody transfers in, like, oh, it's no big deal. No, but this is easy. The SEC's different. He says O-line, D-line, linebacker, DBs, they're a lot bigger and faster in the SEC. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Hit the nail on the head. Chris Marler, again, will start joining us next week, next Wednesday. Going to be a lot of fun, man. Chris brings a very, very fun perspective. Ethan K. on my way to Cocoa Beach, Florida, stopping by Columbia and walking around the campus and stadium as we speak. Ethan, that's awesome, man. Enjoy yourself. It's always nice to get a look, right? Sneak a look, if you will. Eric Reese, with all these new conference realignment moves, shouldn't we redo all the bowl tie-ins? Eric, I definitely think, that's something you're going to have to do. That's something you're going to have to do. So I think that'll most certainly happen, Eric. Our guy, Brad Crawford, speaking on the conference realignment today, about an hour or so ago, he says, or actually this is about 30 minutes ago. He says, greed reigns. It always does. The perfect sport of college football won't be ruined by conference realignment, expansion, gargantuan buyouts, or NIL. Just take it for what it is. NFL light and move on. Almost time to stop making student athletes go to class, too. I mean, it's really good point. I mean, it's really, really good point. I mean, I think Brad hits the nail on the head. So, let's see. Brad says this as well, and I always really obviously value what Brad has to say, his opinions on things. The amount of misreporting that has happened over the last 2 weeks on college football realignment has been insane. It's been apparent over a year that if the Big Ten wanted Oregon during its next round of acquisition, the Ducks were leaving. We were really supposed to believe Apple would save the discombobulated Pac-12 overnight. He then says, and for anyone who thinks the SEC staying put with the Texas OU additions because Greg Sankey said so, is sleeping under a rock. How will the SEC respond? Not that I think they have to do anything, right? I mean, I don't think they have to do anything, but, you know, I will say this. It's a really interesting conversation because I'll just never forget. I don't know if he's tuned in. I doubt he is. He pops in every now and then. But my guy, Phil Harris, I'll just never forget him calling in like 2 years ago. I think this was when NIL took place. It was around 2 years ago. NIL and transfer portal hit. And I will never forget Phil Harris calling in and saying, Chris, I'll still pop in. I'll cut games on. But it makes college football less likable. And I think, listen, I think that's fair. And I'm always going to embrace the change, right? Like I love college football. I love college sports in general. I love creating content around that subject matter. But from the fan perspective, so as the content creator side, whatever, you know what I mean? As long as we have games, we have news, we have storylines, we have things to discuss, all good. But from the fan perspective, it's college football is not as we used to know it. We'll put it that way. It's just not. You know what I mean? It's not. It's certainly lost the purity that it went. I mean, amateurism's dead. That's completely dead. And so that what I don't understand, why this doesn't follow suit. And the majority of folks, people that tune into this show, you guys value the banter, the back and forth, some of the critical analysis is what I'm trying to get to. But it just still blows my mind how we have these college football fans. They're in every fan base that if you say one thing critical about their favorite player, their favorite coach, whatever it might be, especially when it comes to players, especially when it comes to recruiting, you're the worst. You know what I mean? I look at it this way now. Why can't we just be honest about recruiting? Why can't we be honest about rosters? Why can't we be honest about players? Why can't we be honest about coaches? This is no longer we're pulling for the hometown team. This is a paid product now. People are paying for this. NIL, collectives, the money is going directly in the pockets of the players. And so, if you're getting paid, there's a certain expectation. And if you're not meeting the expectation because you're paying, you have the right to complain. You have the right to be critical. You have the right to see things as they are. And if not, you're just dumping your money into something you're expecting no return on your investment. So it's changing for sure. I mean, listen, NIL portal, great. But you're making it more like the NFL in the sense that, and I had to learn that early in doing TSUS because, the NFL side, hey, your favorite, you guys know, those of you who are NFL fans, your favorite team signs a player, bro, if you think he's a bum, you'll say it. Nobody gives a damn. Well, I mean, he's making millions of dollars, whatever. If you say that about a college player, South Carolina picks up a commitment, I say he ain't that good. Why are we offering a kid like that? Bro, I would get burned down. People would do their best to throw mud in every single direction our way. But why? I mean, if you're paying for it, why? NIL's changed the game for better and worse, my friends. It's changed the game. And so, like, it's fine because I don't feel the need anymore to tiptoe around certain things. It's like you said, Bruin Nation. If you suck, you suck. If you're great, you're great. But I mean, if you suck, you suck. That's it. And guys are earning NIL because of what they've built with their name, their performance. I think it's great they're being compensated. But if you want to drive a $140,000 G-Wagon, if you play like shit, people are not going to be thrilled. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the nature of the beast. Anyways, that's just kind of a side note. But Austin Gregory says on the college football is less likable. Strongly disagree. I'm of the opinion everyone who loves this sport will love it no matter the direction it goes. We may wish things were different, but when there's 5 minutes until kickoff, expansion and NIL are the last things on your mind. Austin, you're right. People are still going to tune in for sure. I just, there's going to be some people, though, that it's like, this is not the college football that I grew up loving. This is not the college football I fell in love with. I mean, to your point, though, Austin, on the positive side, it just gives us more to talk about. I mean, it really does. Now the offseason, I mean, think about it, bro. Like 15 years ago, I mean, the offseason was pretty dead. You know what I mean? I mean, it was. Like, until you got to kickoff, it's like you'd go read your local newspaper or you go listen to Phil Kornblue on the radio at 6 o'clock or, you'd get your information how you could, but, there was not nearly the amount of information we have now. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Southern State Roofing.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
We're going to send that to voicemail.
At any time, you may press...
I wonder who that might be calling. That might be a business call. I have no idea. We shall see. Anyways, get back into your questions here on this Friday, August the 4th, 2023. CCM says about the Dowell Loggins thing. I guess people just found their joy, indeed. How about Coach Ford injecting perspective here? We passed on the proven OCs and hired a guy fired everywhere he's been. We will see. See, I think you have to respect both sides. I respect it because Dowell Loggins is a question mark. Nobody's right or wrong. And if you want to give credit and credence to all of he's going to be the next best thing since sliced bread, there's the other end of the spectrum also. So, Coach Ford, respect your opinion. I hope you're wrong. Or I hope you didn't say he's going to stink. You just said we'll see. All your points are valid. I hope that it works out the way you and I both hope. I'll say that. Bruin Nation, Clemson the WAC looking for tougher competition. Jeff Gullidge, I could see FSU and Clemson sucks going to the Big 12. Indeed. Marion, AJ Green. Oh, yeah, like I got suspended for games for selling a jersey on eBay. That's right. I'll never forget when Todd Gurley and Johnny Manziel got suspended for signing their autographs and getting paid for it. That was insane. That was insane. And I don't think any former college athlete is going to feel bad for college football fans, for the NCAA, whatever. I don't think any of them are. Deion Sanders says this on conference realignment, quote, all this is about money. You know that. It's about a bag. Everybody's chasing a bag. Then you get mad at the players when they chase it. How is that? I mean, he's not wrong. I don't think he's wrong. By the way, guys, fall camp beginning today for the Gamecocks. Jordan Strawn and Mo Kaba were in shorts and helmets, full participants at practice. Tyreek Johnson was limited, and Ryan Brubaker was out for today's practice. Also, apparently, I heard that Juice Wells did not participate in practice. Said he was dressed out fully. Did not. I don't know what it means, guys. Please do not shoot the messenger. Do not flood me with questions. I have no idea. That's just what I heard. Haven't heard anything that says he's not fine. I'm sure they're just being extra cautious, man. I mean, dude, it's fall camp. It's practice one. Let's take care of Juice Wells. Let's just take care of Juice Wells and make sure he's fine. Austin Gregory, did you call in from Southern State Roofing, my friend? Was that you? Okay, I sent it to voicemail because I didn't realize that was you. So call us back on the other side of the break because we're about to jump into one. Arthur Bear says, Chris, what were the analytics on Dowell Loggins for the guy you had earlier on the show? Any idea? He said there's nothing because Arthur Bear, he hadn't been an OC at the college level. So there's nothing to judge Dowell Loggins on, positive or negative. Positive or negative. Austin, give us a call after this break, my friend. I didn't realize Southern State Roofing was you. Either way, guys, we are going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll take more of your questions, your comments, your calls, and more here on this Friday. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Friday, August the 4th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Thank you all so much for the continued love and support. I want to continue to hear from you, your questions, your comments, your calls. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Friday. Arthur Bear says, are they not getting info from Loggins from the NFL? Why can't they use that? I suppose they did use analytics on him for the NFL. He would suck, right? I mean, I think Arthur Bear, that's exactly why they don't do that, is because is it really fair? Like, we've seen Nick Saban be porous in the NFL. He's the best college coach of all time. So, like, I just don't think it really is a fair measuring stick. I mean, listen, if Dowell Loggins lives to what his resume says, and he's the same guy in the NFL or in college that he was in the NFL, South Carolina's in some major trouble. I mean, he's in some South Carolina. They are in major trouble. Shane Beamer is in major trouble. But you didn't hire him because you thought he was going to be that same guy. You hired him because you thought he was a massive upgrade over what you had. Guys, 843-790-3377. Yeah, Chase Floyd Spurrier was also bad in the NFL. Great point. Fantastic point. CCM, the NFL like comparisons are spot on. As more money gets put into college football, the more transactional it feels. No doubt. A really, really cool thing that our guy Bad Brad sent over in the Big Cock Club Discord. Beamer Ball towel sighting in the latest Marty and McGee clip, which, I mean, it obviously puts a smile on my face, and it just kind of reminds me that, you know, we're getting that time of year, and it's going to be just really cool, man. I mean, it's, you know, it makes me giddy. It makes me giddy. It's a very neat thing. That was, you know, that's why I tell people, I said this many times last season, that along this journey, there are things that happen that you can't predict, that you cannot draw up, you can't script, whatever. There's just things that happen that go beyond even your expectations, your wildest dreams. And so the Beamer Ball towels being featured the way they were last year, whether it be on the Jumbotron, it be on ESPN specifically, I mean, that was just a blessing, man. It was a blessing. I mean, I just, you know, it's one of those things that almost kind of leaves you speechless. So it's kind of one of those things that leaves you speechless. It's so cool. So cool. So, Slayer of Queens. Yeah. Arthur Bear says, definitely an upgrade from Satterfield. Spurrier was the coach of a team with a horrible owner. Yes, he was. The Skins, right? Back then. Brewer Nation says Matt Rule was god-awful, but Nebraska swears he's the next coming. And maybe he is. Who knows? Who knows? Nebraska football, a really proud program, man. That's a really proud program. Taylor Made says, hey, Chris, if you're Clemson and FSU, be careful what you wish for. All of a sudden, they aren't a shoe-in for conference championships in the SEC like they are now in the ACC. Again, be careful what you wish for. You make a great point, TaylorMade. I still think that's one, though, that even with that risk, they will gladly take that risk for the bag. I think they'll gladly take that risk for the upgrade that going to the SEC, the Big Ten, what have you, provides, for sure. John Edward, Arizona State and Utah showing interest in the Big 12, sources told Action Network. Arizona's already applied for Big 12 membership, but Big 12 now exploring its options. I mean, I agree with Jake Crane, man. I just I can't wait till ball actually hits the field. We're talking actual football on the field of play. And I mean, the realignment stuff just gets old. It does. It gets old. I know it's something we have to talk about. And it is a storyline. It's worth mentioning, especially if if South Carolina was one of the ones moving. They're not going to be. But, if that was your team moving, most certainly it'd be a storyline to pay attention to. Let's see. Jesse Simonton, I'm on 3, said this, which I agree. You can be excited for Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan, Washington, and still admit that this sucks for the sport. No more Civil War. No more Apple Cup. Yeah, you're going to lose out on a lot of rivalries, a lot of traditional games. I mean, bro, thinking about Southern Cal playing Illinois, like, what is that? What is that? Somebody else says, do Clemson and Florida State to the SEC make sense now that the Big Ten has added Oregon and Washington, Southern Cal, UCLA, etc.? Big Ten will have 18 teams, while the SEC will have 16, with Texas OU coming on board. It could. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Southern State Roofing.
Austin Gregory, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, man, I'm good. What's going on?
Dude, just hanging out, man, chilling. I appreciate you calling in. What's up?
I got you. Hey, I had a couple questions for you in regards to those folks in the upstate. If they were to come to the SEC, do you think that they'll have a hard time, what am I trying to say here? I guess readjusting their expectations. Or do you think after a 9-3 campaign with no playoff berth, they're going to be calling for Dabo's job?
That's a great question. I mean, they're used to making the playoff. That's kind of the standard expectation there now in Clemson. I mean, when you look at like what it means to move conferences, I mean, just look at last year. I mean, South Carolina beats Clemson, and Clemson wasn't, they weren't a bad team by any measure, but they weren't what they've been. And yet they went undefeated in their conference and won the ACC. You see what I'm saying? So, like, that's not going to happen if you're in the SEC. That's not going to happen if you're in that Big Ten conference. So, I think a lot of teams will have to adjust. I mean, here's the thing. If you're in a conference with more quality teams, this goes for everybody. Your team's going to lose more games more than likely. Like, we could look at South Carolina. Texas and Oklahoma get added. There might be some seasons where you're better than you're used to and you're only winning 8. And you're just like, you almost got to kind of accept that, So, yeah, I mean, I think as the competition increases, I mean, no doubt, man, it's unless schools want to start shuffling through coaches, you might have to reset your expectations to a degree, but that's where the 12-team playoff comes into play, right? So I think schools will be banking on, let's just get to double-digit wins. We feel good about our chances in the college ball playoff, and we'll go from there. So I think it does slightly change expectations, and, fans are going to have to get used to that.
Gotcha. And I had another question for you, too. So with Clemson, if they were to move to the SEC, this is all hypothetical.
Right.
If they were to move to the SEC, obviously the rivalry, for my money, is one of the best in college football. Does it being a conference game enhance that rivalry?
Oh, I think absolutely. I mean, there's just more on the line. You know what I mean? So not that it needs much enhancing. I'd put it up there against some of the best rivalries in college football, college sports, really. But, yeah, man, I mean, if it's a conference, especially it's end of the season, it's a conference game, going to go a long way in determining if both teams are good, like, where teams finish. I mean, dude, it only adds more stakes to a game that have plenty of stakes in it. So I think absolutely that being a conference game. I mean, look at Alabama, Alabama and Auburn. If that wasn't a conference game, it'd still be a big game. But the fact that it basically there's many years it determines the SEC West. That puts even another level of emphasis on the game.
Right. Now I got one more, man, and I'm gonna get you out of here on this one. What do we have to do to become big bro again?
What do we have to do to become big bro again? To Clemson, you mean? I mean, I think win. That's it. Just win.
Is there any stipulations?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think to claim big brother status, you need to win consecutive games. I mean, I think there's a couple. We're just talking football. Win consecutive games. Right. Beating them back-to-back will be a good start. Then you need to win 3 of 5 out of a best of 5. Then I think you need to win, 7 out of 10 over a decade. That's like true big brother status. If you win 6 out of 10, I think that's just a good back-and-forth rivalry. You're talking big brother status. We dominate you 7 out of 10 over the course of a decade. And then beyond football, you just need to beat Clemson more often than you lose to them in all the other sports. And maybe those same rules could apply for all of the sports, but that's kind of where I sit with football. Like if you're going to claim you're the big brother over someone else, you just need to win and win significantly.
Absolutely. All right, Chris, thank you for your time, man.
Austin, you're the man. I appreciate you. Take care. Great stuff from Austin Gregory. Guys, again, the phone lines are open, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Quick question. Is anybody using Threads anymore? Is anybody using Threads? I mean, I see some people that have like really big followings on Threads. I mean, dude, ESPN on Threads has 1.7 million. We have just under 2,000 followers, but I literally have not sent a thread in 3 weeks. So, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of feel like, what's the point? Like, it's Twitter. It's literally Twitter. I don't know. Anyways, 843-790-3377. Bruin Nation says, if Clemson goes to the Big Ten, they'll go to the side with Illinois, Northwestern, Iowa, Indiana, Minnesota, Purdue, and Florida State, to the other one with Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. Yeah, I mean, listen, Bruin Nation, I get what you're trying to imply that the Big Ten's not very good either, but it is better than the ACC, I would say. Let's see. Again, guys, beautiful Friday in the city. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Justin Martin says, Chris, RIP Pac-12. ACC could be next. It absolutely could. It absolutely could. How about this? This kind of went under the radar, too. Gamecocks men's basketball has started practice. They are back on the floor. I mean, you think about it, guys. College basketball season begins, late October? So, and I think my guy Austin Gregory asked me in the Discord, are we going to do a countdown this year for basketball season? Why not? I think so. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I know it doesn't move the needle like football. I mean, it was so funny, guys. I think I told this story already, but last year I did the countdown a couple of days, and the response I got was, Chris, it's football season. So, like I know it moves the needle, but I mean, I'd like to generate some buzz for basketball. Why not? Why not? Let Lamont cook. Austin Gregory, the failure thread was actually beautiful. Facebook bought Instagram so they didn't have to compete, created Reels to rival TikTok and Stories to rival Snapchat. Twitter, they can't overtake it. Good points, Austin. Very good points. And Chase Floyd, you were correct. Twitter is X now. Twitter is indeed X, for those who are calling it X. LLC, let Lamont cook. Hey, another big commitment happening tomorrow, guys. Jalewis Solomon is going to announce his commitment. That would be a huge pickup for Shane Beamer and company. It does sound like they will get Landon Duckworth tonight, the 2026 quarterback. And it sounds like, based off what we've heard, is that Jonathan Paylor will be heading to NC State. Reddit College Football says this: per sources, what's holding up the Pac-12 signing is that Colorado may come back and bring Kansas, Oklahoma State, and TCU with them. Also, USC and UCLA have been on a year-long covert operation to pull Nebraska to the West as well. Who knows?
Call from
Robbie Davis.
Let's jump to the phone lines
Hall
here.
of Famer.
Robbie Davis, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I just finished eating my lunch. How are you?
Fantastic. What was for lunch today, Robbie?
I had a ham and cheese sandwich with mayonnaise, hot sauce, and some Cheez-Its.
Some Cheez-Its. Cheez-Its are the elite snack. That's for sure. Elite snack.
I do love me some Cheez-Its. I ain't gonna lie. I love me some Cheez-Its.
Same.
But I was calling in to say that I feel like, now don't get me wrong, I'm okay with NIL. Okay, I'm okay with it. Okay, I'm completely okay with it. I definitely agree these guys need to be getting paid. And one of the reasons why I think that is, all it would take, okay, is for something really bad to happen, and then like them getting hurt to the point to where they can't take care of themselves. So I think that them getting money is a good idea because of that. Because all it would take is one bad hit, and you can't do anything. So them making money, in my opinion, is a good idea. But I also think it's getting a little crazy with how much money some of these guys are getting whenever they haven't really proven anything on a college football type of level. Okay, like if I gave, like, say I was to offer you NIL money, okay? If I gave you, say, what would be an okay number as far as NIL for you?
Robbie,
if I was to give
you, I'm chasing the bag, man. I need 7 figures, coach. I'm a 5-star quarterback. I'm a 5-star quarterback. I'd say this. I'd say how much you got? How much you gonna give me? How much you got?
Just bear with me here. Say I was to give you 7 figures, okay? But you wind up not playing well enough to earn said 7 figures, and I dropped the money down a little bit, and I said, okay, you start playing well enough and you'll earn the 7 figures back. And I think what's concerning me is this: it's going to get to the point to where they're not going to care about winning games. All they're going to care about is making money and what have you. If all you want to do is make money, go to college, get a degree, and get a job and make money, okay? But if you want to play sports and make money, you better prove it that you want to make money in whatever sport you're playing, okay? Or you're going to wind up sitting behind a desk and having a desk job for after you get done with college.
Well, Robbie, to your point, what I would tell you if I was said player and you said that to me, I would say, nah, I'm asking for guaranteed money. And if you ain't got it, I'll go somewhere else that is going to give me a guaranteed check.
Then I'd tell them, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you.
All right. Hey, I'm a bag chaser. Money talks, bullshit walks, coach. I'll be back in a couple months to whoop your ass. That's what I tell you. You're going to have to watch me on the sideline while I whoop your ass. And then we'll see who's
But
splitting
anyway,
who, right?
But that's just what I think. Okay, that's and like you said before, everybody is entitled to their opinion, and that's what I think. Okay.
I'm
Now,
not
what I
I'm
say-
not saying
what-
you're wrong, by the way. I'm just giving you devil's advocate here. I'm just giving you the other
Oh,
side of it.
I know. I know. And my phone just went off. And
Yeah.
I'm
Because
keeping up with the Braves
because
game.
because listen, Robbie, I don't think anything you're saying. I mean, listen. I support NIL. I support the collectives. I think that's all fine and dandy. But I'm gonna say this. I've said this before, by the way. It's on public record, but like, I think paying a high school kid $1 million to come to your school is crazy. I think it's crazy, man.
Mhm.
I understand it's Jimmy's and Joe's, and you got to get the best players, and like with the way the recruiting and the stars work, like you can figure out who those best players are and project and all that. But like, I mean, there's no guarantees, man. There's no guarantees. You know, I mean, at least in the NFL, when they're drafting a guy, they've got a full, you know, or they're throwing a bag at them and they're signing a contract. But like, they've got film from years of college football playing against the other best of the best. I mean, some of these guys, when they're playing in high school against dudes, Jimmy from math class, who's 5'8", 140, soaking wet. I mean, what do we know about that guy? I get measurables. I understand. I'm not saying these guys that are breaking this down and giving scout reports don't do their job, but like some of the numbers are crazy. And I think for a lot of people, I mean, listen, you're going to have and these people are great, by the way. Every fan base needs them, and with every school out there, whether it be Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, you're going to have your 10% of folks,
crying out loud.
right? Your 10% of folks, 20% of folks that are going to be like, we got to give every penny you got. We got to give it all to chase 10 wins and winning the SEC. But I think the common fan is going to say, I'll learn to like 7-5 or 8-4 before I go broke chasing 10-2. That's just my honest take, my honest opinion. You know, and that's where, hey, you need those top tier donors who really have the means to supply that. I mean, that's who throws the bag anyways. Or to be fair, that's where you need things like what the Garnet Trust is doing, like what Carolina Rise is doing to be creative in generating NIL money. But to your point, it does feel kind of wild to me that it's like, I mean, even to go get a 3-star defensive back or even a 4-star athlete, it's like these NIL valuations are 6 figures, and it's just the nature of the beast. And I'm glad guys can benefit their name, image, likeness, but man, it's crazy to me to pay that much money to a guy who's completely unproven. It's just completely unproven at the college level. I don't know. But I mean, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Whether you like it or not, it's reality.
What it is. And like you've said before, players were always getting paid. It's just now it's right in front of your face and there's nothing you can do about it. Right?
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. And as far as conference realignment, I really don't care. I don't.
Right.
It doesn't bother me. I'm still going to watch it regardless. I mean, for crying out loud, I even watched the Hall of Fame game last night, even though it wasn't that bad, but it was a bit of a snoozer. But it was just good to be watching football again finally.
I watched a couple of plays, Robbie. Admittedly, I didn't watch a ton of that game, but it was great to see football back on the television. So I'm saving all my bullets, all my game watching, I think, for college football and the games that I actually care about. But, yeah. So, but anyways, it was great. It's great that football is back. So I guess there's no NFL this weekend, though, right? They just do the Hall of Fame game. And then the next weekend, I think preseason begins.
Tomorrow I think last night was the Hall of Fame game, and I think tomorrow is the Hall of Fame ceremony.
Okay.
Tomorrow. And then, of course, they got, I think they got some sort of like Hall of Fame dinner thing tonight or something.
Okay, but preseason starts next week.
But-
Okay. Good.
Well, the Hall of Fame game is the official start.
Right. But like everybody gets going next week.
Yeah, next week is whenever yeah. So, but I'm just glad football is back. Thank you, Lord. Football is back. And I will make sure within the next week and a half, I will have my game-by-game prediction ready for you.
I love that, Robbie. Can't wait to hear it, my friend. I appreciate you calling in, man. It's always a pleasure. Have a great weekend, dude.
I will, and as always, leave the stupid stuff to me and go Gamecocks. And to heck with Dabo Sweeney and the Tigers in the upstate. To heck with them. To heck with them.
Well said. Well said, my friend.
So.
Robbie, you're the man. I appreciate you.
You too, buddy.
All right, brother. Take care. Great stuff from Robbie Davis. Guys, we're going to jump into one final break. On the other side, we'll close out the show in style. We'll go into the weekend taking your questions, your comments, your calls, and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Friday, August the 4th, our final 10 minutes or so. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Hey, do not forget, by the way, the season simulation series returns Sunday night. We'll go Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday as we take on Missouri, Texas A&M, and Jacksonville State. And, of course, it will not actually be Jacksonville State, unfortunately. I've got to find just some replacement. We'll face some FCS, whatever team. But either way, the simulation series does come back. And guys, we're 3-3 and 2-2 in SEC play. So 3 very big games upcoming, no doubt. And then the next weekend, we'll get into Vandy, Kentucky, and Clemson. That'll be a lot of fun. Austin Gregory says, I got a golf trip in Cocktober in Hilton Head. We'll be sure to swing by Carolina Cigars and let them know I heard of them. Please do, Austin. Please do. I appreciate that. Please do. Austin Gregory, Florida Atlantic would be a good sub for Jacksonville State on the sim. Maybe so. Okay, maybe so. Yeah. Maybe so. Austin Gregory, Chris, will you look into announcing your best bets weekly? I will absolutely 110%, Austin, be doing that. So if you weren't tuning into the podcast last year, Austin, I guess last year is not a great example because when I had the structure of this thing's been kind of all over the place, right? At one point, many of you remember this, we were dropping the podcast on a daily basis. So it was a totally separate thing, by the way, from the Daily Crow. So think about it this way. I was doing TDC, then recording a separate podcast after the fact and uploading that. So I get all that to say, Austin, that I've always, Wednesday or Thursday or what have you, that's when I drop my best bets of the week. And I'm actually still working through the game week structure, what that's going to look like, obviously, now with the way we distribute content and create content on TDC. But yes, whether it's Austin Tuesday, whether it's I'd say either Tuesday or Wednesday. Wednesday feels like that perfect day because it's the day before we get going with games and, on that Thursday or what have you. But probably Wednesday, that's when I'll lock in on my best bets for that upcoming weekend. But it will absolutely happen, yes. And I would say that'll start week 0. Because I will have some action on some of those games that weekend. Anyways, guys, I want to say thank you again for the continued love and support. Truly, this week has been incredible. The numbers continue to go up, not just with the podcast, but TDC. I see the numbers skyrocketing there as well. Austin Miller says college football has always changed in different ways. This is just the new version of it. It has been and still will be the premier college sport either way. I mean, I tend to agree with you, Austin. I tend to agree. It's just, here's the thing. No matter how much players are getting paid, no matter how much there's the portal, no matter realignment, when you flip on your TV on Saturdays, people are going to watch. I mean, it's such great entertainment. There's so much great drama in it. Yeah, people are going to watch. So to your point, I'm not worried about it from the sense of, the sport of college football is doomed. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm not worried about that at all. But it's changing. Anyways, guys, let me say thank y'all for the love and support in the merchandise side of the business, man. We're getting orders from the store left and right. I see them rolling in. Cannot say thank you enough and just how much that means to us. So, hype coming out of day one of fall camp, talking about the Kerryon Joyner at the running back position. We'll see. We'll see. Cannot wait, guys, to start talking week one. Cannot wait to start talking week one. Chase said it's crickets in here, indeed. Let's see. Austin. There are a ton of Austins. There's a lot of Austins and there's a lot of Travises. Tons of Travises that follow TDC and comment, interact, all that good stuff. Jeff Gullich says the NI deal didn't work out for Dr. Pepper. True. Brewer Nation says Robbie don't know ball. How about this? Frank gives his perspective on NIL. Football Frank says, all y'all that are on board with NIL are crazy. You got to travel to games, buy tickets, buy merch, and now join a collective that basically pays salaries? Players leave that leave as soon as someone offers more cash. Wake up. Well, Frank, I say you this. I respect everyone's opinion, perspectives, and I don't think what you said is unfair. I really don't. But thank goodness there are people out there who are willing to shell out the cash. And I think some people too, listen, man, I think some people, they go to the University of South Carolina. They are, proud alums. They feel indebted to USC. Going to Carolina was one of the greatest times of their lives, and they want to give back. I mean, let me ask you, let me ask you this, though. Is it different than like when your university calls you and they're like, hey, like, we want to check in and see if you wanted to be a donor and like do this and donate to the school? Is it really all that different than that? I mean, at least at this point, you're giving it football, you're giving it players, you're giving it student athletes instead of giving to the school who doesn't need the money. I mean, they're getting tuitions and TV deals and all kinds of nonsense. So at least it's going into the pockets of the people who deserve it. At least that's what's happening. Brewer Nation says, what's more likely, Dak over 700 yards or Rattler 35-plus touchdowns? Rattler 35-plus touchdowns. And it's not a knock on to Kerryon Joyner. I think it's because, Brewer Nation, we're going to throw the football more. 35-plus touchdowns would be crazy, but when you look at the offense and what it's – oh, you meant 25. Okay, well, I'm definitely taking 25 then. Brewer Nation, when you look at the offense and what it's built for, where the best players are, I think that's a no-brainer. I really do. I mean, does Carolina have an offensive line capable of leading a rusher to 700 yards themselves? That's why I said, guys, 500 or more rushing yards for Dak, that'd be a huge season. That'd be a very successful season. And I think what people need to understand is that when you set realistic expectations, you're not saying they're not capable of more, but it's important to keep real expectations to not get carried away and put them in a position where they can't succeed. So I think Kerryon Joyner's capable, but, 700 plus would be a really, really, really good year. Jeff Gullich over under Rat throws 2 picks in the sim game Sunday night. Gosh. Missouri, I'll go over. Final question or final statement from Frank. Then let's have some assurances. No opting out. Performance-based incentives. We're in contract land now. I pay, you play. Well, Frank, I think that's a lot of the structure and, things people are looking for. You know what I mean? That's what people want, more structure. They want some rules. They want some guidelines. I think you're on the right track. Guys, we've hit 3 o'clock. Hey, appreciate you all tuning in. Great stuff all week long, man. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live and we drop new video content. Also, head over to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that subscribe button. You can find us there under the Spurs Up Show. And guys, of course, stay tuned to social media. All the content we have releasing, content bleeding out the eyeballs. Guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will talk to you all on Monday.